After our parents divorced, my younger sister chose to live with our wealthy father. I moved into my mother's rented apartment. A few years later, my father squandered the family fortune on a life of drinking, gambling, and debauchery. Meanwhile, my mother started a live streaming business and became a well-known female entrepreneur. My sister's life was turned upside down, so she came to me in tears. But then, when I wasn't looking, she slipped poison into my cup. We're both our parents' children. How come you get to live so well while I'm left out in the cold? It's my turn to live the good life. When I opened my eyes again, we were back on the day our parents divorced. This time, she rushed to hug Mom first. I want to live with Mom, she said, no matter how hard it gets, I'm willing. But she didn't know, Mom was even more terrifying than Dad. My younger sister has always been sweet-tongued and good at charming people, so she was always the favorite. When our parents decided to get a divorce, they asked my sister first who she wanted to live with. Our father came from a wealthy family and was very rich. Mom was a stay-at-home wife, and after the divorce, she was left with nothing, struggling to get by. So, without a second thought, my little sister obediently hugged our dad. I love you the most, Dad. I can't live without you. I want to grow up with you. Dad was over the moon. He picked her up and lifted her high into the air. That's my good girl. You just stick with your daddy and be his little princess forever. My younger sister smiled sweetly. Out of our parents' sight, she shot me a triumphant glance. Yes, she's been like this since she was little. She's always trying to one-up me. She's more than willing to do things that hurt everyone, including herself, just to get the better of me. Dad and my little sister were both laughing happily. Mom was off to the side, looking heartbroken. I was quiet for a moment, then walked over and took my mother's hand. Mom, I want to live with you. She looked at me deeply for a moment and said nothing. A few years later, by a stroke of luck, Mom's live streaming career really took off. We moved from a rundown rental into a proper apartment complex, and then from there, we moved into a villa neighborhood. Mom traded in her second-hand electric scooter for a Mercedes. Then she upgraded to a Porsche. One time, Mom took me out for a drive. We happened upon a traffic accident on the road. An electric scooter rider going the wrong way crashed into a luxury car. The luxury car owner started yelling and cursing, while the scooter rider could only stammer meekly. His daughter was wailing beside him, but he, embarrassed by her, kicked her. The girl turned her head in utter despair, and her eyes met mine through the car window. It was my sister, Lilith, and the electric scooter rider, humbly apologizing, was my dad. Lilith spotted Mom and me too. Her eyes lit up, and she came chasing after us like a madwoman, but Mom had already hit the gas and drove off as if nothing had happened. I hesitated before speaking. Mom, that's my sister, Mom said coldly. I can see that. What, you want to help her? I didn't dare to make a sound. Mom sneered. She was so adorable as a child. Now she's grown up, as ugly as her father, an ungrateful wretch. Serves her right. I fell completely silent. It wasn't long before Lilith got a hold of my contact information. She asked to meet up at the cafe. She was crying her eyes out. Sis, you have no idea. Dad is just... Lilith says Dad is a complete and utter fool. He's incompetent, yet insatiably greedy. A few years back, he bought into a friend's nonsense, ignored Grandpa's warnings, and invested in a company. But that company was a trap from the very beginning, so tens of millions just went down the drain. Grandfather was absolutely furious and disowned him, kicking him out of the house. I thought Dad would learn from his mistakes, but all he knows is drinking, eating, whoring, and gambling. After being thrown out, Dad spent every night partying and living it up. He even went to the casinos in Macau and gambled away a fortune, all on the advice of his girlfriends. Within a few months, he had blown through his entire savings of several million. His father even ended up saddled with over 6 million in gambling debts. His grandfather couldn't be bothered with him anymore and refused to give him a single cent. With no other choice, Dad had to make a living by delivering food, but he was used to a life of comfort and privilege. He used to have a chauffeur whenever he went out, so he wasn't even familiar with traffic rules. Not long after starting his delivery job, he crashed into a luxury car while going the wrong way. It was exactly the scene I witnessed a few days ago. In the cafe, Lilith threw herself into my arms, crying her heart out. Sis, I saw Mom driving a Porsche, wearing Chanel, and your bag is Dior too. You all must be living really well, right, sis? Could you go back and talk to Mom for me? I'm her daughter too. I don't want to live with Dad anymore. I want to live with her. She must have missed me terribly. In those first few years after we parted, she would call me often, hoping I'd come back. Her eyes were filled with hopeful anticipation, but the mere thought of mother sent a chill down my spine. Finally, I said, "It's best if you don't live with mother, but I can give you some money." Lilith's head snapped up, a flash of venom in her eyes, but almost instantly, a grateful smile spread across her face. "Thank you, sister. I knew you'd be the one to look out for me." The next day, I transferred 50,000 yuan to Lilith. She offered to have me over to her place for a meal. In the rented apartment, Lilith handed me a cup of tea. "Big sis, I remember you've always loved jasmine tea since we were kids. I picked this out especially for you. See how you like it." I let my guard down and drank it, but soon, the world began to spin. The last thing I saw was Lilith slashing my face with a knife. "Serena, we're both our parents' children. How come you get to live so well, while I'm left out in the cold? You have so much money. Yet you give me so little and won't even let me go back to my mother. You selfish, despicable wretch." An eternity of darkness passed. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day my parents divorced. Faced with my father's question, without a second thought, Lilith turned and threw her arms around her mother. "I can't live without you, Mom. I want to stay with you, no matter how hard things get." Moved. Her mother held Lilith tightly, nestled in that embrace. Lilith allowed a sly smile to play on her lips, in a blind spot, invisible to everyone else. Lilith silently mouthed the words to me, "Sis, this time, it's my turn to soar." So, she had been reborn too. Little did she know, her mother was even more terrifying than her father, for Lilith cheerfully made her way to the rental apartment, and I stayed behind at the villa. Dad was as unreliable as ever. Freshly divorced, he was already planning to hit the clubs that night. On the other end of the line, some mistress's voice was sickly sweet and cloying, yet it had him completely charmed. He grabbed his jacket and was ready to head out. I stopped him just as he was about to walk out the door. I asked, "Dad, who's going to have dinner with me?" He replied matter-of-factly, "Isn't there the nanny? Let her eat with you." I bit my lip and said, "I haven't seen Grandpa in a long time. And I miss him a little. Dad, could you take me to his house?" Dad hesitated for a moment. Seeing this, I added, "Aunt's son went to see Grandpa a couple of days ago." Who knows what he said, but Grandpa bought Aunt another car. "Did you know, Dad?" Hearing that, Dad's hesitation vanished instantly. "That family is always leeching off her parents' side. Disgusting." "Serena, I'll have the driver take you over right now. Remember, you must put in a good word for me in front of your grandfather." "Understand." With that, he practically shoved me into the car. Grandfather lived in a secluded lakeside villa. In his eyes, my mother was a scheming woman. She was ruthless and cunning, stopping at nothing to get close to my father. Because of that, he always looked down on my mother, and by extension, disliked both me and Lilith. In my past life, after our parents divorced, Lilith also tried to win over our grandfather. But at home, she had always been the spoiled little princess. Her head was empty. And her only real talent was putting on an act of being sweet and innocent. But at her grandfather's house, all her little tricks were useless. No matter how much she cried or threw a tantrum, all she got in return was her grandfather's cold indifference. Unlike her situation, her aunt's son, Ethan, was the apple of their grandfather's eye. No matter what he said or did, he always earned their grandfather's praise. Over time, resentment grew in Lilith's heart. During a family gathering, she deliberately smashed an antique vase, and she framed Ethan for it. She thought this would bring Ethan crashing down from his pedestal. What she got instead was a surveillance video from a hidden corner. Ethan's standing remained completely unshaken. Lilith, however, faced the old-fashioned discipline of her grandfather. Her grandfather accused her of being scheming and ruthless, willing to do anything for personal gain, just like your mother. He then demanded that her father never bring her to the house again. From that moment on, Lilith harbored a deep-seated grudge against her grandfather. On the day of her grandfather's milestone birthday, Lilith even posted a comic about it on social media. The comic was a vicious curse, depicting death using various methods to claim an old man's life. Grandpa saw it, of course, but he paid her no mind. Later, her father went bankrupt, and Lilith's standard of living plummeted. It was then that she finally remembered her grandfather. She knelt at the doorstep of the old house, begging for his forgiveness and pleading for him to take her in. The security guards dragged her away before Grandpa even showed his face. This time, time flowed backward. Lilith left to embrace the new life she had always dreamed of. and the person standing outside the lakeside villa, about to visit Grandpa, was me. I took a few deep breaths and pressed the doorbell of the villa. 5. Even though Dad had already spoken to Grandpa ahead of time, saying I wanted to visit him, but in the study, Grandpa's expression towards me remained quite cold. Even after I greeted him politely, he still showed no intention of acknowledging me. I didn't get upset, just found a corner and sat down. During the years I lived with my mother, I endured insults far worse than this. 100, 1,000 times worse. This was nothing. In the study, Grandpa was giving Ethan a spot check on his schoolwork. Ethan is 17, an academically gifted prodigy with a keen interest in finance and economics. Grandpa is a self-made first-generation tycoon, though it's a shame his own children have proven rather unremarkable. That's why he genuinely admires this driven and down-to-earth grandson, often calling Ethan over to discuss famous domestic and international business deals. Grandpa's questions were all quite challenging. Ethan managed to answer the first few questions, but this one was different. Ethan fell into deep thought. Grandpa wasn't in a hurry and patiently waited for his answer. I timidly raised my hand. Grandpa, may I share my thoughts? Grandpa glanced at me, his expression skeptical. You didn't even finish junior high. What could you possibly have to say? If you can't sit still, just leave. Don't try any of these little tricks. I wasn't angry either. I smiled and said, if my answer doesn't satisfy you, I'll go stand in the corner as punishment, okay? Grandpa just grunted, but Ethan said, Grandpa, why not let her give it a try? Grandpa didn't say anything, which was his silent consent. I gave Ethan a grateful smile and then began to speak. The initial capital for this group of entrepreneurs was not obtained through legitimate means. In their early years, they acted as compradors, helping foreign enterprises enter the domestic market. They leveraged information asymmetry to reap exorbitant profits. Grandpa looked at me with surprise and pressed on. So, what would you say were their inherent advantages? And what were their problems? I thought for a moment and replied, their advantage was that they established close ties with foreign companies early on and adapted to the market relatively quickly. However, the very source of their success became their downfall. Their problem was an over-reliance on the first-mover advantage provided by these foreign firms, failing to develop their own competitive edge. Consequently, as the market matured and became more regulated, their competitive advantage simply vanished. Grandfather stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. There was doubt in his eyes, and scrutiny, but the contempt was gone. After a pause, he asked, You're only 14, where did you hear all this? I said, there are so many books at the city library. I really love to read. Actually, that wasn't true. A large portion of the clients my mother dealt with were beneficiaries of foreign company compradors. They exploited loopholes, amassing wealth through nepotism and information asymmetry, yet they credited it all to their own skill and ability. On a certain drunken afternoon, with a young woman in his arms, he couldn't wait to boast about his past successes. Thinking of this, I squeezed my eyes shut tightly. When I opened them again, I was still in my grandfather's solemn, antiquated study. And not in that dim, suggestive bedroom bathed in pink light. Clap, clap, clap. It was Ethan, applauding softly. He said, Serena is only 14, yet her reading comprehension and critical thinking skills are remarkably strong. That's truly commendable. He looked at me, his expression gentle and sincere, and said, I feel I pale in comparison. I quickly shook my head. It was just a coincidence. I don't understand any of those finance and economics concepts you mentioned. I still have so much to learn. After a brief silence, Ethan asked me, Serena, would you like to study with me? 6. On Ethan's suggestion, grandfather allowed me to sit in on the lessons, yet, he remained suspicious of me. He suspected this was some kind of alternative scheme. The goal was still to swindle money out of him. Consequently, he demanded that Ethan report on my activities to him regularly. Honestly, I don't need Ethan to watch over me, and I don't need anyone to force me. Every day, I follow the same routine of going to and from class. When the weekend comes, I'm either practicing the piano or spending my time in the library. This is the life I once longed for but could never have. How could I not cherish it? Several months had passed, in grandfather's study. I was no longer just a listener. Often, over some question grandfather posed, Ethan and I would argue until we were red in the face. This would continue until grandfather called a halt. I can't say exactly when it started. Grandfather stopped looking at me with that guarded expression. Ethan also stopped reporting on me to grandfather. He complained that paying attention to me was a waste of his time, which is why he ended up losing to me on a quiz. To this, Grandpa just laughed heartily. I pretended not to know any of it, quietly working through my practice problems. At school, my diligent studying paid off handsomely. In a math competition, I won first prize. My teacher said she would single me out for praise at the parent-teacher conference, but Dad, as always, was completely unreliable. He had promised to come, but with only half an hour to go, he told me he couldn't make it. He said, "Serena, I have a very important meeting, let the nanny go to the conference for you, okay? Be good." But from the other end of the line came the unmistakable sound of women's flirtatious laughter. I didn't expose his lie and calmly hung up the phone. Then, I sent a photo of the math competition honor roll posted on the classroom blackboard to my grandfather. On the list, my name and Ethan's topped the junior high and senior high sections respectively. Our shared surname, Chen, shone brilliantly under the sunlight. P.S. Grandpa. Dad had something come up last minute and can't make it to my parent-teacher conference, but my teacher really wants to speak with a parent about my future plans. Could you come? Grandpa came to the school in person. This was a level of attention even Ethan had never received. The homeroom teacher was awestruck, and the principal hurried over to receive him. Grandpa calmly took the main seat in the principal's office and asked, "How is my granddaughter doing in her studies? Is there anything she needs to improve on?" A question asked with full knowledge of the answer. The homeroom teacher quickly showered me with praise, saying I was the best possible student in every way. Only then did Grandpa nod in satisfaction. After the parent-teacher conference, he hesitated for a moment, then unexpectedly told the driver to head to the mall. He said, "I see all the other girls in your class dressed to the nines. So why are you so plainly dressed? Is your father not providing for you properly?" In the end, he ordered 6 or 7 ready-made outfits for me. He also bought me several bags. Looking at the number on the bill, I was filled with dread. "Grandpa, aren't you worried I'm after your money now?" He burst out laughing. "Go ahead, I was worried you weren't after it." I was taken aback for a moment, then started laughing too. Lilith believed that to win her grandfather's favor, she had to rely on being cute, providing emotional support, and acting sweet and coquettish. But she failed to understand that her grandfather was a self-made entrepreneur who had seen more than his fair share of flattery, manipulation, and the darker sides of human nature. He had no need for, and held in contempt, the praise and affection coming from someone he considered useless, a ruler in his twilight years. What I most wish to see is a vibrant younger generation. As for me, as long as I keep proving my capabilities, I'll become the next Ethan sooner or later. Grandpa's pride and joy. 7. A few years later, Grandpa had a study specially renovated for Ethan and me. I was in the middle of a game of Go with Ethan. The news came that Dad, stubbornly ignoring Grandpa's objections, had invested tens of millions into a shell company, and now, that company has blown up. In the study next door, Grandfather was absolutely furious. You could hear his roar even through the wall. "Is your head just a useless lump? How many times did I tell you that company was no good? Why didn't you listen? Don't even try to explain. From now on, I have no son. Get out of my sight. As far as I'm concerned, you're dead to me." My heart sank. Just like in my past life, Grandfather is going to disown Father. I just don't know if, this time, Grandfather's anger will extend to me as well, and if he'll cast me out of the family like he did to Lilith. Bang! The study door swung open. Grandfather stood in the doorway, his face dark with fury. "Serena, come out here." Ethan quickly rose to his feet, stepping in front of me. "Grandpa, no matter what Uncle did, Serena is innocent," Grandfather said coldly. "This is none of your concern." Ethan was about to say more, but I tugged on his sleeve. "It's okay, brother. Grandfather must have something to discuss with me." In the solemn, antique study, the aroma of pu'er tea filled the air. I respectfully brewed and poured the tea, then placed the cup before my grandfather. Then, just as I had on my first day here, I found a quiet corner and sat down. Grandpa stared at me for a long moment, his aged eyes seeming to see right through me. I remained still, letting him look me over. After a long silence, Grandpa spoke. "I'm planning to cut ties with your father. What do you think?" I said. "Dad wouldn't listen to reason and made a huge mistake. It's time he faced the consequences of his actions." Grandpa asked, "Aren't you going to try and talk me out of it?" I almost sighed. Why would I? Last week, when we discussed the rise and fall of that American family-owned business, I made it clear, if family members lack the necessary competence, the company should be handed over to professional managers. You know better than I do what father is truly capable of. If I were to ask you to let him stay, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. Grandfather narrowed his eyes and said, if I drive him out, you'll have to live a hard life. Are you really willing to accept that? I gave a helpless smile. The money is yours to begin with, you can give it to whomever you please. It's not my place to say. As for me, I can always earn my tuition through tutoring or internships. Please don't worry about me. Having a father like this is my lot in life, and I don't resent my fate. After a long silence, the kettle came to a boil once more. I reached out to pour myself some water, but grandfather poured me a cup of tea himself. He looked into my eyes and said, having a father like that is your fate, but in your fate, besides your father, there's also me. Grandfather drove father out of the house, yet, he moved my luggage to his own home. From then on, there was a bedroom of my own in the lakeside villa. I no longer had to endure the parade of different women my father brought home, because I had become my grandfather's granddaughter, the granddaughter under her grandfather's wing. 8. That day, after school, I ran into an unexpected visitor, Lilith. She was dressed in a seductive and alluring manner, head to toe in luxury brands. Her makeup was impeccably done, with long, fluttering false eyelashes that seemed capable of stirring up a breeze. Lilith gave my outfit a once-over and dramatically furrowed her brows. I heard Dad went bankrupt, so I rushed right over to see how you're holding up. Look, sis, I'm not trying to be mean, but even if we're broke, you can't go around looking like a total mess. I looked down at myself. The sneakers I was wearing had split open during a basketball game earlier, and I hadn't had a chance to change them yet. My clothes were just a basic tracksuit. They were a bit worn out, but I loved wearing them because they were loose and comfortable. As for accessories, I'm really not like some of the girls in my class who love wearing bracelets and necklaces. Bracelets would slow me down when I'm working on problems, and necklaces would just get in the way when I'm exercising. So, all the jewelry my grandpa bought for me is still sitting in the walk-in closet, untouched. Seeing me fall silent, Lilith took it as my silent agreement. She leaned back, her smile blooming with a particularly radiant charm. How pitiful you are, sis. Not like me. I already have 2 Hermes bags, loads of beautiful dresses, and I live like a princess every single day. I don't want to talk about that. Instead, I asked her, I haven't seen you at school since last year. Did you transfer? She replied, what's so great about school? I take dance classes every day now, and my mom even helps me with my makeup and skincare. She says girls don't need to learn so much. Having good looks is what really matters. As she spoke, she leaned in, pointed at her eyes, and said smugly, see my double eyelids? My mom took me to get them done. They're much prettier than your single eyelids. Right, now look at my hands. I get full body treatments every week. My mom says this is what they call soft as if boneless. Now look at yours. TSK, how come they're covered in calluses? I opened my hand and looked at my palm. Some of these calluses were formed from holding a pen. Others came from working out at the gym. Soft hands can't throw a punch. What I want are hands strong enough to take control of my own life. Seeing me fall silent, Lilith grew even more smug. She said, jealous? Well, don't even think about going back to mother. She prefers a sweet, obedient daughter. She has no use for you. I lowered my head and smiled. Yes, mothers love daughters who are obedient and well-behaved. In the past, I was beaten black and blue for refusing to submit. Lilith thought the makeup, short skirts, and designer bags her mother bought her were acts of maternal love. Little did she know, they were all tickets straight to hell. Those beautiful dresses will be torn to shreds, the lovely makeup will be smeared and ruined. Amidst the opulent and exquisite bed, those old men delight in hearing the little girl cry and beg for mercy. Since when does manna fall from heaven, my dear sister? You have no idea. The price of getting something for nothing is far greater than money. 9. After graduating high school, I received an offer from a top U.S. business school, making Ethan and I classmates once again. My grandfather was thrilled and threw a celebration banquet in my honor. Ethan even flew back internationally just to celebrate with me. Amidst the clinking of glasses, a middle-aged man in a suit started buttering me up. Truly the granddaughter of old Master Chen, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That idiom isn't actually used correctly here, but in this situation, everyone tacitly ignored the fact that my grandfather's real, unworthy son is a foolish and incompetent good-for-nothing, and now, he's scrambling to make money and pay off his debts. I smiled and nodded, raising my glass toward the uncle. The moment I saw him, my blood ran cold. The man had a mole above his right eyebrow and a scar on his ear. And beneath his suit jacket, a large, unsightly birthmark covered his chest. How do I know all this so well? Because he used to be a frequent guest at my mother's house. In the pink bathroom of the luxury villa, Frederick's favorite pastime was grabbing my hair and forcing my head into the bathtub. Over and over again, he said my suffocation brought him the greatest pleasure. He said my mother took the money and still depends on him for business. Even if he killed me, my mother wouldn't care. So, I'd better not resist. I'd better cooperate and behave, otherwise. The whip in his hand would lash me to a bloody pulp. That's the face I'll never forget. Noticing my strange expression, Ethan took the glass from my hand, smoothly covering for me. My sister can't hold her liquor. I'll drink this one for her. Everyone applauded with smiles. They praised old Mr. Chen for his good fortune, saying how admirable it was to see the Chen family siblings living in such harmony, and so on. However, Grandpa noticed something was off with me and suggested I go sit in the lounge for a while. In the lounge, I gulped down ice water, trying to calm myself down. By my calculations, Mom should have shown her true colors by now. And what about Lilith? What's going to happen to her? I took out my phone and called her. Hey, how have you been lately? On the video call, Lilith looked at me with disdain. What's this? Had a rough time with Dad and now you remember me. Weren't you so stubborn before? If you want to come crawling back now, you'd better get on your knees and beg. I shook my head. No, that's not it. I just wanted to know how you've been, Lilith sneered. Oh, dear sister, spare me the fake concern. You'd love to see me fail, wouldn't you? Too bad for you. I'm doing great. I'm in a relationship with a powerful, wealthy man who treats me like a princess. What's more, I'm now a key player at Mom's company, managing over a dozen employees. My dear sister, I think you should worry more about yourself, unless you want to end up delivering takeout with Dad. With that, Lilith hung up the phone. I stared at my phone, lost in thought. In my past life, after divorcing my father, my mother received a portion of the assets, but she was accustomed to a life of luxury and couldn't bear to live frugally. Soon enough, she returned to her old ways, determined to seduce another wealthy man, but she was older now. No amount of meticulous upkeep could compete with the youthful beauty of a younger woman. After several failed attempts, the mother realized that while the men were no longer interested in her, they seemed to be quite taken with her daughter. And so, my nightmare began. The way Lilith is now, she's genuinely happy. Or is it the last shred of fantasy before a mental breakdown? 6 months later, I returned to my home country. It happened to be just before my grandfather's birthday. I dragged Ethan along to pick out a gift for Grandpa, but at the auction house, I ran into Lilith. She was wearing a tight, strapless dress with bold, seductive makeup that clashed with the formal atmosphere of the auction. But when she saw me, her spirits visibly lifted. Serena, what are you doing here? A place like this is way out of your league, isn't it? As she spoke, she glanced up, looking past me. Behind her, Ethan stood in a silver-gray shirt and a black suit. He cut a dashing figure, handsome and composed. Lilith stared at him as if she'd seen a ghost. Is that Ethan? Ethan nodded. That's me, and you are. He didn't recognize Lilith anymore. Lilith and I used to look very much alike, but now, she's had double eyelid surgery, bone shaving, and a breast augmentation, with heavy makeup and a sexy outfit. She was a completely different person from before. It was no wonder Ethan didn't recognize her, but hearing Ethan's question, Lilith was furious. Oh, I see how it is. You know her, but you don't know me. Is that it? How could the two of you possibly be together? Dad went bankrupt ages ago. How did you manage to latch onto Ethan? As she spoke, a look of sudden realization dawned on her face. You seduced Ethan, didn't you? You thought snagging him would be your ticket out of this miserable life, didn't you? Have you no shame? And your cousins? At that moment, even without another word from me, Ethan understood who she was. His face darkened as he rebuked. What utter nonsense. Lilith's eyes burned red, her expression one of sick, frenzied madness. You're defending her. Do you even know her family's bankrupt now? Her dad's out there delivering takeout, getting cursed at every day. She gets beaten and yelled at constantly too. And you're standing up for that little tramp. Ethan frowned and stepped in front of me. Shielding me, he spoke in a measured tone. I think you've got it wrong. It was her uncle who was kicked out of the family, not Serena. Serena is currently studying at XX Business School. Grandfather thinks very highly of her. 11. The words had barely left my mouth when Lilith looked as if she'd been struck by lightning. What did you say? That's impossible. Serena should be out doing food deliveries with Dad. How could she possibly be in college? I couldn't be bothered with her. I grabbed Ethan's arm and tried to leave, but Lilith stepped right in front of me, blocking my path. How could Grandpa possibly value you? Even I can't get his approval, so what makes you think you're worthy? She looked me up and down, as if she had found the answer. Grandpa's a pedophile too, isn't he? So that's his thing. That disgusting old man is quite the hypocrite. He should have just come to me sooner. I have plenty of young girls under me too. Slap. I slapped Lilith hard across the face. You can talk about me, but you don't get to talk about Grandpa. That slap was from Grandpa. Lilith was about to lunge at me, only to be stopped by a middle-aged man. The man had a mole above his right eyebrow and a scar on his ear. It was Frederick, the very guest my mother had been so desperate to please in her past life. He clutched Lilith tightly in his arms, looked at me and Ethan, and kept apologizing. My apologies. She's not well. I should have kept a closer eye on her. I'm truly sorry. We meant no disrespect to old Master Chen. So, the rich and powerful boyfriend Lilith kept talking about was Frederick. How pathetic. She's so willing to sell herself to the highest bidder that she assumes every other girl in the world has to trade their body to get ahead. I shook my head and said, "Keep your people in line, Mr. Fong." Frederick nodded repeatedly, but Lilith struggled in his arms. He's my grandfather too. Get this straight, he's my grandfather. Frederick slapped her again and barked, "Shut your mouth. The Chen family only has 2 children. A whore like you has no business claiming kin." With an apologetic glance at me and Ethan, he said this and dragged Lilith away. At the auction that day, I successfully won the landscape painting by my grandfather's favorite artist, but my mood wasn't exactly lifted. Please don't get the wrong idea. Lilith brought this on herself. I don't feel sorry for her. I just thought of all the other young girls in my mother's villa, and more guests, like Frederick. Perhaps it's time I did something about it. 12. The house was packed with distinguished guests on Grandpa's birthday. Ethan and I presented him with that landscape painting, and Grandpa beamed with delight. He took us around, introducing us to each of his closest friends one by one. This is my granddaughter, Serena. She's our little lucky star with a real knack for investing. She bought this landscape painting with the profits from her investments. Serena, this is Uncle Sang, the chairman of the XX Group, and this is Auntie Jiang. She's the founder of the XX Charity Foundation. A steady stream of titles and names flowed past. Only one name struck my eardrums with a vengeance. Howard. I remembered that name. In my past life, it had been spat out in Frederick's countless tirades. Howard was a military man turned industrialist. A man of unwavering integrity who couldn't tolerate the slightest wrongdoing. Originally, he was Frederick's boss. Later, when Frederick was investigated for taking bribes, Howard fired him. After leaving the company, Frederick started his own business and poached a significant number of clients from his former employer. Because of this, the two became almost sworn enemies. This time, they both seem intent on winning a particular government tender. And the project is now in a critical preparatory phase. With that thought, I raised my glass and offered a toast to Howard. So you're the chairman of Howard Industries. I just heard about your company the other day. Howard smiled. Oh, and where did you hear that? I smiled and said, enunciating each word, I ran into Uncle Frederick at an auction a few days ago. At the mention of Frederick's name, Howard's mouth tightened slightly. I pretended not to notice and continued. Funny you should mention it. That's the 3rd time I've run into Uncle Frederick this month. The first 2 times, he seemed to be having a drink with Patricia. Patricia is my mother. After divorcing my father, she not only got plastic surgery but also had a fortune teller change her name. No one in this city knows her background anymore. She's become a complete newcomer. In recent years, she started with live streaming and built her business into a booming enterprise, becoming a highly sought-after female entrepreneur. To outsiders, she's the epitome of a rags-to-riches success story, but those in the know are aware that her so-called business is nothing more than a den of vice for trading power and sexual favors. The moment he heard the names, Patricia and Frederick, mentioned together, Howard understood almost instantly. You said, Patricia, I said innocently. Yeah, that lady was really pretty, and the little girls with her were too. It's just, the man sitting with them looked kind of familiar. I think I've seen him on TV. Howard's eyes lit up. He hastily filled his glass, reached over to clink it with mine, and then threw his head back to drain it in one go. Serena, your grandfather was right. You really are a lucky charm. 13. I have no idea what using another's hand to kill means. I had no idea what it meant to strike a cow through a mountain. It was just one afternoon, while casually scrolling through news on my phone, that I discovered my mother's company had gone bankrupt, and she herself had been taken into custody, along with several of the public relations managers, who were permanent fixtures at the villa. They all ended up in the detention center. Law enforcement officials shared some information with reporters. They stated that upon receiving reports related to power for money and power for sex transactions, they took the matter very seriously, launched a special investigation, and obtained sufficient evidence. In due course, once the court issues its ruling, the relevant criminals will be sent to prison. In the news reports, the eyes of the men and women at the arrest scene were pixelated, yet I could still recognize the man with the hideous birthmark as Frederick, and the panicked, alluring woman fleeing from his arms was none other than Lilith. Unlike these reports that exposed the dark underbelly of society, I turned the page and entered the world of financial news. The headline reported a rise in Howard Industries' stock price, boosted by the company's successful bid for a major project, which strengthened shareholder confidence. After folding the newspaper, the housekeeper brought up a gift. It was a gift from Uncle Howard for my 21st birthday. A translucent white jade pendant. He said nothing, left no note, yet I knew exactly what this precious gift was for. I closed the box and tucked it away in the cloakroom. Like so many of my glittering jewels, it was beautiful, but no longer what I sought. All beauty comes at a price. Until I offer my labor, my talent, and my effort in exchange, I am not yet worthy to wear them. 14. Another 6 months or so passed, and the verdict was finally handed down in the case that had shocked the nation. The ringleaders, Patricia and Lilith, who had kept young girls captive and forced them into prostitution, received extremely severe sentences. One afternoon, I received a call from the detention center. They said my sister wanted to see me. Outside the detention center, I ran into my dad. I thought he was there to visit my sister. It turned out he was just in the area delivering food. When he saw me, he shamelessly sidled up to me. Serena, could you put in a good word for me with Grandpa? Blood is thicker than water. How can you bear to see your own father suffer? I stopped Ethan as he tried to push him away. I looked calmly at the weary, aged man and said, "You deserve it." Once, his grandfather had placed great hopes in him, mentoring him personally, yet he squandered the family fortune on drinking, whoring, and gambling. I still remember one day when I was a child, coming home from school. The door to his bedroom was open, and inside were naked men and women. Whether from drugs or alcohol, a naked man reached out to try and pull me inside, and my father just stood there watching, laughing hysterically, and did nothing to stop it. I was only 7 years old that year. If it weren't for the nanny saving me, I have no idea what would have happened to me. Now, looking at my father's wretched appearance, I could no longer find a trace of his former dashing spirit. Perhaps this is fate's idea of fairness. If you think you're heaven's favorite, fate will put you right where you belong. My father shouted something behind me, but I paid no more attention. I just strode forward, leaving the nightmares of my childhood behind. 15. In the prison visitation room, behind the glass, Lilith wore an orange vest and shackles, but the moment she saw me, she became extremely agitated, straining desperately to lunge forward and nearly taking a nasty spill. I looked down at her. "Calm down, sis," Lilith said. "I heard you've graduated from business school." I nodded. She continued, "And I heard you joined grandfather's conglomerate as the general manager." I corrected her. "She's just an intern. Whether she stays depends on her performance." She continued, "I heard grandpa felt bad about your long commute, so he bought you an apartment downtown." I said, "I pay grandpa rent," but she seemed not to hear, lost in her own world. Why, this life should have been mine. If I had chosen dad, all of this would be mine. The elite school, the mansion. Being the heir to the conglomerate, it should all be mine. "Serena, you've destroyed everything for me." I looked at her with pity. "Didn't you choose your father?" Lilith snapped out of her frenzy. After a long pause, she pointed a trembling finger at me. You've been reborn too." I didn't answer her question. Instead, I simply said, "Both times, I tried to save you. In our past life, my father went bankrupt." Lilith came to me, wanting me to take her to my mother's mansion. I refused because I didn't want her to suffer the same torment I did, but she came to hate me for it and poisoned me, taking my life. In this life, I met Frederick and realized my mother might still be up to the same tricks, so I called Lilith, yet she didn't see it as a disgrace. On the contrary, she took pride in it and joined our mother in oppressing other girls. News reports have surfaced, exposing Patricia's wickedness. She sold out her own daughter for personal gain, but Lilith is even worse. Acting as an accomplice to evil, the methods of torment she devises are more vicious than Patricia's. Looking at the person weeping bitterly behind the glass, I felt not a shred of sympathy in my heart. Lilith, no matter what you choose, your end will not be a good one, because your intentions have been wrong from the very start. You treat people as mere tools for wealth and status, chasing the empty dream of reaping rewards without effort your entire life. Even when being tormented and humiliated by one old man after another, you still consider it more honorable than honest work. Grandfather was never wrong about you. You're just like your father, indulging your every desire, and just like your mother, stopping at nothing to get what you want. Utterly selfish and cruel. Lilith was laughing and crying, on the verge of a complete breakdown. No, it can't be. I want a do-over. I want a do-over. As she said this, her face contorted and she lunged at me, but she had forgotten about the thick pane of glass between us. She slammed into the glass with a loud thud. Then, they were dragged away by the prison guards. The corridor echoed with her shrill, tearful curses. Serena, I hope you die a horrible death. I hope you die a horrible death. I just smiled. A horrible death. So, who's the one who's going to meet a bad end? 16. When the news of Patricia's death arrived, I had already completed a rotation through every department in the group. Rumor has it that Patricia ended up sharing a cell with the mother of one of the girls she had victimized. The woman was a con artist who had swindled everyone, all to raise money for her daughter's medical treatment. But after she was locked up, her own daughter was lured, deceived, imprisoned, and tortured by Patricia. One late night, the mother ended Patricia's life in a way no one could have ever imagined. They say Patricia died a horrible death. The person on the phone asked if I wanted to claim her ashes. I said, no need. Toss them, lose them, it doesn't matter, really. The call ended. I just kept working on my proposal. When a colleague asked what bubble tea I wanted later, I blinked and smiled. A mango pomelo sago for me, please. During my rotation through the corporate group, I would sometimes complain to my grandpa that the overtime was brutal, practically sucking the life out of us young people. So, Grandpa took it very seriously. He demanded we benchmark against foreign companies, adopt an efficient work style, and eliminate pointless overtime. He even fired several HR managers and department heads who had brought that overtime culture into the group. By this time, Ethan had become the cornerstone of the group's business division. He was always sharp, and having grown up under Grandpa's wing, he had a keen understanding of how the market really works. The only downside is that, being so far removed from the front lines, he sometimes struggles with information gaps. That's when he comes to me for help. I don't have any special skills, really. I just kept my true identity under wraps when I first joined the company. This allows me to blend in on the ground floor, get all the juicy gossip and inside scoops, and then quietly tip off Ethan about the people everyone else can't stand, but management seems to love. And just like that, Ethan swoops in as the righteous avenger, becoming the ultimate hero in the eyes of the company's staff. After working overtime on Friday, and yes, I really did volunteer for it, Ethan picked me up to go to my grandpa's for dinner. The whole way there, cheerful music played in the car. Outside the window, a full moon hung high over the riverbank. Ethan blurted out, when I was a kid, I thought you and your mom were pretty much the same. I laughed and scolded him. Are you out of your mind? That's an insult. Ethan smiled too, a gentle curve at the corner of his lips. Yeah, I realized later that wasn't quite right. You actually take after Grandma more in personality. Oh, Grandma, the co-founder of the group who stood by Grandpa, building everything from scratch and holding up half the sky on her own. I accepted the praise with a twinge of guilt, adding, actually, I've always wanted to say thank you. I often boast that it was my hard work, my diligence, and my intelligence that caught Grandpa's eye and earned me his support, but that's not entirely true. On this path where I was sprinting forward, desperate to leave the nightmares of my past life behind, it was Ethan who first reached out to help me. He suggested to Grandfather that I join him for lessons, and so, a place was made for me in Grandfather's old-fashioned study. Ethan smiled at my earnest words of thanks. We were stopped at a red light. He braked and flicked my forehead with his finger. Come on, we're family, no need for thanks. Besides, you might have forgotten, but when we were kids and Lilith pushed me into the lake, you were the one who jumped in to save me. I was stunned. Is that so? Ethan glanced at me and added earnestly. Even though you were barely waist-high back then, didn't actually save me, and were more of a hindrance, your heart was in the right place. I burst out laughing. A gentle night breeze carried the light of the bright, high moon. Schubert's piano piece, gentle and melodious, fell upon my fingertips. I heard Ethan's unhurried voice. So, Serena, everything in this world is simply a matter of reaping what you sow, rather than thanking me. You should thank yourself, because you are a good person. Even if you hadn't met me, Ethan, you would have met a Zhang Ethan or a Xia Ethan. I lowered my head and gave a soft, quiet laugh. For no reason at all, tears welled up in the corners of my eyes. I once lived in a home filled with calculation and estrangement. All Mom ever wanted was money, and all Dad ever loved was women. My sister is a manipulative, two-faced little schemer who's always trying to trip me up. Later, my mother took me away, and I thought I was about to start a whole new life. But she used a truly cruel method that almost destroyed my life. During those years of captivity, different men would barge into my room every single day. I'm even afraid to fall asleep, terrified that when I open my eyes, I'll be met with the face of yet another stranger. What I can't understand most of all is that the person who wrapped me up and gave me away was my own mother. The one person who should have loved me most in the world. Mom, why would you do this? Mom, I'm your daughter. Countless whys tangled together, becoming the knife I held to my artery, the sleeping pills I swallowed, the despair of being unable to even die. But thankfully, everything has changed. By my side, I have a grandfather who is stern yet loving, and an older brother who is outstanding and principled. They care for me, push me forward, and support me as I grow freely. My bedroom is cozy and charming, and I'm surrounded every day by my cat, my dog, and the Financial Times. Those dark, painful, and spine-chilling gasps are all far behind me now. I reached up to wipe away my tears, turning my head to look out the car window at the large, bright moon. Ethan clearly noticed, but was considerate enough not to press for details. Instead, he casually changed the subject. Grandpa secretly asked me what he should get you for your birthday. I thought for a moment and said, he doesn't need to buy anything. I'd just like to eat his egg-fried rice. Ethan laughed exaggeratedly. Seriously? You're that easy to please, princess. I laughed. Isn't a meal cooked by Grandpa's own hands enough? Someone is willing to make me happy. Someone is willing to cook for me, and I can stand in the sunlight, living a clean, untainted life. Free from fear. This is the greatest gift life has given me. The end. Story 2. As graduation approached, I had planned with my best friend to go on a trip with each other's boyfriends, but on the day before the trip, I suddenly broke the agreement. You two go, I have something to go home for. Jenna, my best friend, was very upset when she heard this. We had made a plan. How could you back out at the last minute? She was obviously upset. Because this graduation trip was entirely funded and organized by me. Ashton, my boyfriend, also frowned. Jacqueline, don't act like this. We're about to leave. Hurry up and pack your things. I looked at the two of them coldly, singing in harmony, and my mind was filled with the cruel looks of their previous lives. We were trapped in the villa by heavy rain for a whole week. Just when we thought it was about to clear up, a sudden blizzard came. Temperatures dropped sharply, and the whole country was in chaos. Snow over a meter high completely blocked the roads, and the electricity and water were cut off. The food supply in the villa was limited. For this, they cruelly stripped all my clothes off and threw me naked into the snow-covered ground where the temperature was tens of degrees below zero. I froze to death in the blizzard, not even a piece of covering, naked, my body turning blue from the cold. That's not all, my soul was trapped in the villa after death. I helplessly watched them living in my villa, eating the food I had prepared, comfortably waiting for rescue in the villa, and finally pretending to cry for my death, to gain sympathy. Fortunately, I was reborn. Jenna's boyfriend Blake was idly standing behind, staring at my body in an uncomfortable way. I frowned, suppressing my intense hatred and anger, and spoke again. This time it's my fault. You guys go out and have fun, I'll cover all the expenses. After saying that, I opened my phone and transferred 30,000 yuan to Jenna. Jenna complained aloud about why I suddenly changed my mind. Her hands quickly accepted the payment, and there was a bright smile in her eyes. Have a good time. I gave a meaningful smile. My gaze swept over the three people who had killed me, and then turned to leave. This time, there was no shelter and supplies I had prepared. I'll see how you survive in the blizzard. After getting rid of a few people, I quickly accounted for the available funds in my hands. According to the timeline from my previous life, the blizzard would arrive in about half a month. I have very little time. I sold the house my parents bought for me at a low price and quickly cashed out 20 million. This house was bought by my parents near the university after I got admitted to the capital's university, so that I would not be uncomfortable living in the dormitory. However, after entering university, my best girlfriend and boyfriend came from modest backgrounds, and I wanted to protect their self-esteem. I never showed off my family's wealth in front of them. I just said that my parents lived on the grassland, and that they sold a few cows to support my education. Therefore, I have overheard them mocking me as a country bumpkin who is not fit for the elite. I regret that I realized too late in my previous life, and I didn't see through their true faces in time. After I had a sufficient amount of money, I started buying a lot of supplies: diesel generators, kerosene heaters, solar power generators. I was browsing the largest hardware market in the capital. The way I spent money soon attracted the attention of many merchants. They all came to try to get my business. Thinking about the harsh weather that was tens of degrees below zero, I kept buying everything that might be useful. Then I had them delivered directly to my parents' place, one after another. Huge trucks drove onto the highway heading to Inner Mongolia. As for furs and other artificial heating tools, our family, which owns thousands of acres of grassland, certainly isn't short of that. I even bought a wind turbine, which cost me almost half of my assets, but this also ensures that as long as the facilities are not damaged, at least our family's electricity supply will be normal. In addition, there is a solar radio, a hand crank flashlight, some self-defense tools, and so on. After purchasing all the things I thought would be useful, I had spent all 1 million in cash. It's time to go home. I contacted dozens of 4S store salespeople and finally spent nearly 4 million to buy a fully equipped RV. It was in stock, and I got the car the next day. Before leaving, the items I had expedited ordered online finally arrived: cases of mineral water, nearly 10 cases of compressed biscuits and military cans. I also stocked up on dozens of copies of various medicines available on the market. No one knows how long this apocalyptic disaster will last, but I can only do my best to prepare for everything. After everything was prepared, I finally drove my RV full of supplies and set off on the journey home. It has been 5 days since I came back to life. I saw on social media that Jenna and the other two are traveling around, and they are currently staying in a popular city. It's the same city where we got stuck in the rain and snowstorm last time. I looked at their latest group photo. My eyes were unreadable. Jenna was in the middle, smiling brightly. Ashton and Blake stood on either side, one with his arm around Jenna's shoulder, the other with his arm around her waist. The familiar scene behind them was the villa we stayed in last time. I didn't expect, after going around, they ended up staying in that villa again. Is this fate? In my previous life, I always made preparations to ensure they had good food and a comfortable place to stay. When I temporarily stayed in a popular city, I even took them to my own villa. My parents, who often get bored, like to take road trips, and whenever they arrive at a city, they buy a property as a memento. The small villa in that popular city was bought by them 2 years ago. When I was in school, I usually entrusted the villa to a homestay agent to rent out to tourists. This time, since I was going myself, I had previously contacted the agent to prepare food for 4 people for a week. When we arrived at the villa, Jenna still praised the good service, saying that so many delicious foods and drinks had been prepared. Little did she know that all of this was paid for by myself, just to make sure this trip would be satisfactory for them all. This time, without my prior arrangements, the villa would probably be empty and have nothing at all. As expected, not long after, I saw Jenna complaining on her social media about the homestay owner not preparing anything, only a few bottles of water. I wasn't surprised, smiled, and closed my phone, no longer paying attention, focused on driving to my hometown. Night fell, and I stopped at a service area for a rest. At that moment, I suddenly remembered, when I handed over the house to the agent had installed several cameras and gave me the access rights, so that I could check the house situation even when I was away. Thinking about it, I opened the monitoring software on my phone. In the villa's living room, the 3 of them were lying on the sofa, sprawled out. The living room was already in a mess, with leftover takeout all over the floor. Jenna was curled up in Blake's arms, scrolling through her phone. Thank goodness Jacqueline the idiot didn't come along. Otherwise we wouldn't have been able to have so much fun. Jenna's voice came clearly from the monitor. Ashton sat on the other side of the sofa, listening to people badmouthing his girlfriend, without even lifting his head. At least, she's fairly generous. Blake took over the conversation. It's obviously fun to eat, drink, and have fun all the way without spending your own money. Humph, if it wasn't for her money, I wouldn't be hanging out with her. She's always acting like a nouveau riche. And she's so desperate to pretend. I see. That's how I'm viewed in their eyes. I gave a self-deprecating laugh, and then Ashton finally lifted his head. How much money is left? If it's not enough, ask her for more. It's obvious who Ashton was referring to as her. Not long after, Jenna's phone call came as expected. Without thinking, I hung up the phone. Joking aside, how could I possibly still be generous enough to give them money? They were just waiting to be trapped in that villa. Thinking that, I started the car and set off on the long drive overnight. I was already eager to see my parents. I drove all night and finally reached Hohot. Distance to home was less than 300 kilometers. At that moment, the phone rang suddenly. When I answered, it was my father's call. Jacqueline, so many big trucks suddenly arrived to deliver things, and they're all things you bought. Suddenly hearing my dad's familiar tone, my nose suddenly felt stuffy. Dad, I'm coming home now. Let's talk when I get there. After saying that, I hung up the phone and stepped on the gas, speeding back home. Finally, in the afternoon, I arrived at the northernmost part of the country, the largest grassland in the country. We lived deep inside it. After generations of nomadic life, my parents now have nearly 10,000 cattle and sheep, and they usually live in their own house on the grassland. As soon as I got out of the car, I saw my parents standing at the door, smiling and waiting for me. The painful experiences from my previous life came back to my mind, and my calmness that I had maintained for several days finally broke down. I cried and ran into my parents' arms, sobbing uncontrollably. My parents were at a loss, hugging me. Oh, my little master, don't cry. What's wrong? Tell your parents. We'll take care of it for you. Crying until my tears were all gone, I finally calmed down. With my eyes swollen and red, I choked back my sobs and told them about my past life's experiences. After hearing it, my father was furious. Those bastards, I'll kill them, my father said, raising the axe by his side, his breath heavy with anger. My mother's eyes were also red, hugging me tightly. Baby, don't be afraid, we're back now. This time, we won't leave you alone anymore. I curled up in my mother's warm embrace, and for the first time, I wasn't so afraid of the coming apocalypse. After regaining their composure, the family finally sat down to discuss how to get through the coming snowstorm apocalypse. The equipment I bought has arrived, and they have all been installed and left. I took a look at the dozens of big machines in the house, and the huge wind turbines standing tall in the distance on the prairie. The house needs to be reinforced. If it really is the snowstorm, Jacqueline said, this house might not hold up. The prairie's deep winter has always been harsh, and the houses were all carefully designed. But with this once-in-a-millennium apocalypse, it might not be enough. Dad quickly contacted specialized people to reinforce the house. They wrapped the house in layers, 3 inside and 3 outside, insulation, pressure resistance, earthquake protection. Everything was taken care of. Even the home heating system was redesigned, considering that if heavy snow falls, the heating pipes outside might freeze and crack. Dad specially had someone come to redo the home heating pipes. It can be heated manually by boiling water, or using new energy sources such as gas. In this way, even if the external heating supply stops, we can heat the whole house ourselves. For power supply, in addition to various generators, Dad also specially drove to the city to buy dozens of batteries, as well as a dozen 10,000 mAh power banks, enough to use our phones continuously for a month. In addition, there is a whole room full of diesel oil. As for water sources, most grassland herders use groundwater. However, if the apocalypse arrives, with temperatures dropping to dozens of degrees below zero, groundwater might also freeze. The good thing is we have prepared many coal balls and firewood for burning. Just heat it up and melt it when the time comes. Being well prepared, the next thing is the fur and food for heating. On the grassland, there is nothing that won't be lacking, but there is no lack of meat and fur. Father sold most of the family's cattle and sheep to buyers for money, leaving half to be slaughtered. Some of the meat is frozen in the freezer, and some are made into dried meat. The fur has also been urgently processed into fur coats and blankets. It's only early June, far from the time when cattle and sheep are ready for market. Looking at the fence that was full just 2 days ago, now it's empty. I stood outside the fence, looking at the gradually darkening weather, feeling anxious. Dad. What if the end of the world doesn't come this time? Dad waved his hand carelessly. What's there to be afraid of? We can just buy a bunch of lambs and calves next year, as long as all of us are safe and sound. That's the most important thing. My dad and I just returned home in a car loaded with beef and mutton. Suddenly, heavy rain came. There was no warning. The storm struck suddenly, and the fierce wind and rain battered the windows and doors. I stood by the window, looking out at the pitch-black sky outside. It was only noon, the time when the sun should have been at its brightest. In the previous life, it was also like this. When the country suddenly experienced heavy rain, people online were still joking about this once-in-a-century heavy rain. Even the desert areas that had been dry for a long time could not escape this rain. No one could have imagined that after the rain came endless cold and a desolate whiteout covered in snow. The rain lasted for several days, and finally someone realized something was wrong and wanted to prepare supplies. However, the heavy rain prevented many people from going out. If this continues, the end of the world will come in 2 days. Mom was still in the kitchen, preparing the meat that was delivered into minced meat. Jacqueline loves mutton dumplings. After working so hard these days, I finally have time to make them for you. One by one, round and white dumplings were formed in Mom's hands. I stayed in the kitchen, lingering by Mom's side and not wanting to leave. Mom smiled and pushed me. Go watch TV with your dad, don't bother me. I smiled and agreed with a laugh, but ran back to my bedroom. I opened the surveillance video on my phone again. Heavy rain caused poor signal, and the video was intermittent. The continuous rain for several days made the people in the villa feel bad. No one wanted to go out in the heavy rain to buy food. They constantly used tips to have the delivery person bring food to them. At this moment, the living room was already full of garbage. This damn rain, when will it stop? Ashton angrily threw the pillow to the ground, looking frustrated. The sound of the air conditioner was still humming. Several days of heavy rain had brought the temperature down to just a few degrees. They didn't bring any warm clothes for their trip, and now, even with the air conditioner on maximum, they were shivering in the living room. What a terrible air conditioner. It's not working at all. Jenna, wrapped in a thin blanket, huddled on the sofa and said with a frown. Blake frowned and frantically scrolled through his phone, then sighed and threw it onto the coffee table. It's no good. No one is answering the call. Maybe we should go out and buy one. Jenna, huddled in the blanket, shivered and quietly suggested, you go yourself. I'm not going out in this heavy rain. Seeing this scene, I smiled. At this time in the past life, there was enough food in the villa, but they still coaxed and forced me to go out alone to buy thick clothes. I endured the heavy rain for 3 hours before returning. What I got was their complaints. How careless you are. Your clothes are all wet. How can you wear them? Regaining my thoughts, I saw the 3 of them who didn't want to go out, sitting closer and closer on the sofa. Ashton grabbed the blanket and threw it on the ground. His big hand unhesitatingly pressed onto Jenna's body. Hey, what are you doing? Jenna said with a pout. I wonder if the 3 of them have already gotten used to this way of keeping warm. The disgusting scene was simply unbearable to look at, so I quickly turned off surveillance. Enjoy the last moments of happiness. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. At midnight, I was lying in a warm bed when I suddenly opened my eyes. I felt something and went to the window, pulling back the curtain. It was snowing in June. Many people were awakened by the sudden cold. The temperature had dropped to 10 degrees below zero. Some people were even making jokes about it online. This is the first time I wore a down jacket in June. Ha ha ha, you might think we live in Antarctica. Did it snow where you are too? Snow is falling heavily here. And the snow is almost 10 centimeters deep. More than that, it's snowing all over the country. It's snowing in Hainan, and it's now below 10 degrees Celsius. We live in Hainan and don't have any winter clothes at all. It's abnormal. I need to go out and buy some things right away. Many netizens noticed that this strange weather was not normal, and they went out to buy supplies even before dawn. Not long after, supermarkets and stores were completely emptied, and the whole street was full of people carrying big bags and small packages under the heavy snow. Jenna and her 3 friends huddled together, shivering under a thin electric blanket, but none of them got up. In the morning, the snow outside had already reached the knees, and people's commutes were starting to become increasingly difficult. I touched the hot radiator pipe by the bed, and I knew that my mom had already started cooking breakfast. The radiator pipes covering the entire building kept the temperature at a comfortable 20 degrees. so I just put on a long-sleeved shirt and got up. At 9 a.m., I was eating the warm corn porridge my mother had prepared. While browsing online news, the country has realized the severity of the circumstances and has issued announcements on various platforms. It advises the public to stock up on food and clothes, and to avoid unnecessary outings, secure doors and windows, and later, food and clothes will be delivered by drones. I frowned and closed my phone. The country is thinking too simply. The end of the world is not just a simple blizzard. In a few more hours, not only drones, but even helicopters will be unable to operate normally in the air. This is a national catastrophe. I turned on the security camera of the villa again. Jenna and the others finally put on all the clothes they brought and were preparing to go out to buy clothes. Damn city, I'm never coming back again, Blake muttered as he snatched Jenna's coat and put it on. Jenna was angry but dared not say anything. She could only wear as many clothes as possible. She had only brought some light and thin clothes for the trip. Putting them all on was still not enough. The three of them finally got fully dressed and stepped out of the villa for the first time in the snowstorm. My father and I were sitting on the sofa, drinking hot salty milk tea, watching the news broadcast of the national emergency announcement. I was distracted, watching on TV a group of people who were voluntarily shoveling snow in the blizzard. The reporter was wearing a long winter coat that reached her knees, with goggles, and was still explaining in the heavy snowfall, "Viewers, the country is experiencing an unprecedented cold snap and snowstorm. The Meteorological Bureau has yet to explain this sudden change. Many residents have voluntarily shoveled snow to create convenient passage for everyone." The reporter's goggles were already covered with sparkling ice crystals and thick fog, and her head and shoulders were covered with heavy snow. However, the snow is impossible to clean up. Pushing aside the loose snow, there is a solid layer of ice underneath. To make matters worse, the snowstorm is getting heavier, and the flying snow completely blocks people's vision, making the whole world a white expanse. The temperature has dropped to 20 degrees below zero. It's hard to imagine. A week ago, people were complaining about nearly 40 degrees of heat. Now, people are rushing to buy all kinds of clothing that can help them survive the cold. The villa surveillance finally shows that someone has returned. They are wearing ill-fitting cotton coats, carrying 3 bags of food. Watching them place bottles of beer, snacks, and other treats on the coffee table, I couldn't help but laugh. I don't know if it was too late to get something filling or if I just didn't realize the current situation. Ashton sat on the sofa and let out a long sigh, then grabbed a beer and took a big gulp. Soon, the can was crushed and thrown to the floor. "Jenna, hurry up and boil some water." Although there had been a blizzard for a day and a night, fortunately the electricity and water in the villa had not been cut off yet. Jenna grumbled about being ordered around, but she still obediently went to the kitchen to get water and boil it. As soon as she got to the kitchen, she let out a startled exclamation. "Something's wrong, the water is gone." The two people sitting on the sofa finally sprang up and ran to the kitchen to check the situation. Indeed, the faucet was not flowing a single drop of water. They anxiously called the agent. They received a reply that the water pipe had frozen and cracked, and that it couldn't be repaired in the extreme cold weather. Damn! Ashton angrily threw his phone to the ground, which shattered instantly. "Ashton, you fucking idiot, you just broke my phone." Jenna screamed and reached out to scratch Ashton. Ashton, however, coldly pushed her away. "If you don't want to die, shut up." Blake, on the other hand, looked completely indifferent. "There's still so much alcohol left. What's the problem? How long can this snow last? If it gets too bad, we can still call the police for supplies." As soon as they heard that the authorities would provide free supplies, their expressions relaxed, and they went back to playing with their phones on the sofa. Play away, until the electricity is cut off and your phones run out of power tomorrow. I'd like to see how you call the police for help to get supplies. Across the country, water pipes are gradually freezing and breaking, leading to water supply interruptions. Some cautious people had already stored water and wrapped themselves tightly in their beds, trying to get through this sudden cold wave. My father and I rechecked all the batteries in the house. Mom's homemade pickled cabbage was just ready to be taken out of the jar a week ago. We lit the alcohol stove, and the broth of pickled cabbage and pork slices was bubbling. We added a handful of noodles, and everyone ate until their stomachs were full. Dad even poured a small cup of white wine and sipped it slowly. "Snow, that's why we have hot pot." After saying that, Dad drank the remaining baijiu in his cup in one gulp. Showing a contented expression, Mom gave Dad a scolding look and couldn't help but mutter a couple of words. "You're so comfortable, drink a little less. If you have nothing to do, come help me make beef balls." "Okay, wife, I'm coming right away." I smiled as I held the Sprite Mom specially poured for me, watching the couple tease each other. After so many years, their relationship is still so good. We're a happy family. But the temperature outside has already dropped to nearly -40 degrees. The coldest time in the north is about this temperature. 2 days of continuous heavy snow have reached a depth of 1 meter, and many people's doors are blocked and can't be opened, let alone going out. All road traffic has completely collapsed, with cars buried in deep snow and impossible to find. There have even started to appear deaths. In such a severe cold weather, normal people would wear all their clothes and huddle under thick blankets. Those homeless people who are on the streets have nowhere to go, huddled up, freezing to death in the vast snow. Fortunately, electricity and internet are still being supplied normally. Many netizens have posted some heating tips online. Some people have suggested to get ready for power. In such severe weather, the next step will definitely be a total power outage. In the blizzard weather, people are completely unable to go out. And the country has already sent military drones to deliver supplies to each household, although not much, but using it carefully can help survive. Especially in some southern cities, there was basically no reserve of thick clothes, and the military supply at this time was like a lifeline. The temperature has dropped to 55 degrees below zero, breaking the coldest temperature ever recorded in the country. I instinctively turned on the monitor to watch their movements. Jenna and the others moved the bed to the living room and locked the doors of the other bedrooms, because the living room has no windows and won't let in the cold wind. The central air conditioning was running, but it brought no warmth at all. The three of them were wearing thick coats and covered with 2 blankets, but they were still shivering. That so-called supply is just a joke. Why hasn't it arrived yet? Blake could no longer maintain his calm demeanor, repeatedly looking at the door. Hoping someone would knock, the three of them hugged tightly together, and at that moment, there were no other thoughts. A beeping sound, the air conditioner stopped running, and the overhead lights suddenly went out. The whole room fell into darkness. Power outage. The room temperature dropped rapidly without the tools to keep warm. Blake huddled under the blanket, feeling both cold and hungry. 3 people lying together. No matter how they pressed the blanket, it would still let in the wind. Jenna was in the middle, with people on both sides, so she wasn't really cold. Who knew the next second? Blake and Ashton looked at each other and Ly took Jenna's blanket and quilt. "What are you doing? I'll freeze to death." Jenna's sharp voice echoed in the empty room. No one cared about her screams. The two took all of Jenna's warm clothing and kept it for themselves. Soon, Jenna was curled up in the corner of the bed, wearing only a thin nightgown in temperatures near -60 degrees. Any movement of pulling the blanket would result in the two beating her with fists and kicks. Gradually, a look of happiness appeared on her face, and she staggered off the bed. Jenna took off the last piece of clothing that provided her shelter and lay on the floor. "It's so cool, finally cool." She lay on her back on the floor, her unfocused eyes staring directly at the camera on the ceiling. Jenna's smile grew wider, her eyes wide open, and she died of hypothermia. I looked at Jenna's lifeless expression with a cold gaze, no emotion in the heart. I already knew that, given Blake and Ashton's selfishness, Jenna would definitely die when the end of the world actually came. This time, the two of them didn't seem to have any particular intention, and didn't push Jenna outside. They just let her body lie on the ground, and when passing by, they even kicked it with disgust. The power went out, and the terror of the natural disaster had just begun. The temperature kept dropping, and more people froze to death at home. Those who were well prepared could only try to minimize heat loss, constantly praying for the snow to stop. I looked at the infrared thermometer at home. It showed that the outside temperature had dropped to -67 degrees Celsius. The power was out, but fortunately, the wind power generator I had prepared in advance was still operating with some difficulty, although the electricity is not enough. It is just enough to support the family's normal needs. The heavy snow is still falling outside, and all the doors and windows on the first floor have been completely sealed, making it as dark as a pitch. Fortunately, we were well prepared, and the first floor is used as a warehouse to store some supplies and food. Living and activities are limited to the second floor. Electricity has become a luxury, so the family does not turn on the TV, and the solar-powered radio finally comes into use. Zzz, the blizzard weather has made receiving signals a difficult task. Fortunately, Dad adjusted it for a while and finally got a clear signal. According to the Meteorological Bureau, the low-temperature environment will last for at least another half-month. Please residents pay attention to safety, do not panic. And the government will do everything possible to deliver supplies to everyone. Mom brought up the already cooked hot pot. Today we're having hot pot. If we don't eat it soon, these vegetables are all going to freeze. Meat can be stored, but vegetables have become a luxury. Fortunately, Mom had stored many cold-resistant vegetables near the heater. It's all about a balanced mix of meat and vegetables, nutritious and rich. The internet became blank the moment the power went out. And everyone was trapped at home, unable to contact the outside world. Like so many isolated islands, I also couldn't watch the surveillance camera anymore. Unbeknownst to me, during the time I wasn't watching the surveillance camera, Blake and Ashton finally received a rare supply. A military drone was carrying a small box of compressed biscuits and windproof lighters for heating and fire. The drone was hovering outside the second-floor window, wobbling in the severe snowstorm. Blake and the other person couldn't wait to take the supplies, tearing open the packaging and eating greedily. The howling cold wind kept beating against the windows and doors, and the drone did not appear again as the two had hoped, so the two of them hugged the remaining supplies tightly and kept a watchful eye on each other. The wind turbine at home finally gave out under the blizzard and stopped working. I could only carry the diesel generator up from the first floor with my dad. To save resources, the heating valves in the unused rooms were all turned off, leaving heating only in the rooms where they usually stayed. Mom switched to the most traditional way of cooking over a fire. I huddled by the stove, where the firebox was burning fiercely. The branches and coal were burning, making crackling sounds. Okay, don't add more. If you add more, the fire will be too strong and the food will burn. Mom laughed and stopped me from trying to add more firewood. I could only obediently stick my hand out by the stove to warm up. The scorching temperature kept coming, and I even started to sweat slightly on my back. I ignored the howling wind and snow outside, but I still liked this kind of life. My father and I were still listening to the radio, hoping to get some useful information from it. It has been 5 days since the storm began. It's also the day I was cruelly thrown out of the villa and died on the street in my previous life. I was lucky to have rushed back in the rain to get the blankets and clothes, so when the heavy snow fell, we could still keep warm to some extent. There was still some food left, so none of them had shown their ugly faces yet, but when the supplies ran out, it would be different. When the military supplies arrived, those people who just ate and slept all day finally realized the severity of the situation. Supplies are divided among more people, so I get less, so they ignored my screams and pleas. And directly threw me out of the window. Before dying, I looked up at the falling snow and the drone still spinning in the air. My body was numb from cold and hunger, but my mind still imagined myself soaking in a hot spring. The snow fell continuously for 7 days, and finally stopped in the evening. The temperature also stopped dropping, remaining at 70 degrees below zero. Even in Antarctica, this temperature is rare. But fortunately, the people are not in Antarctica. Almost all houses with signs of survival were dropped with a small amount of supplies by the authorities, including military lighters for starting fires. The radio began to instruct the people to keep warm by burning coffee table, chairs, picture frames, books. Take apart everything that can be burned and throw it into the fire. With fire, the water source is not a problem. Take snow from outside, melt it, and then filter it. It is an inexhaustible water resource. In addition, the radio keeps emphasizing that it is necessary to pay attention to slight ventilation to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning. The snow finally stopped, and the country quickly dispatched professionals from all over to repair the signal. Countless professionals, tightly wrapped in thermal protective suits, drove off-road vehicles equipped with anti-slip strips, carefully heading towards the signal tower. Fortunately, during the few hours of rescuing the signal tower, the snow did not fall again. The signal network experienced a temporary recovery. My phone finally had a signal again, and I opened the villa's surveillance camera. The living room was in ruins, with all the tables, chairs, and coffee tables taken apart and thrown into the fire. Even the bed legs were removed, leaving only a mattress with a large hole in it. In the center of the living room, there was a fire that had already become very weak. I turned the camera's view, but I couldn't find the two people's figures anywhere. The camera slowly scanned every corner of the living room. When it passed by the bathroom door, I stopped. Jenna's body was half hidden behind the bathroom door, as if it had been torn apart by some fierce wild beast. Half of her body was unrecognizable as a human form. Instead, it was casually thrown into an iron can. I covered my mouth, nearly vomiting, and turned my head away, not wanting to look anymore. The camera was still working diligently, and once it detected movement, it immediately turned its lens. I saw Ashton dragging Blake's ankles slowly back to the living room. The down jacket was splattered with blood, his cheeks were sunken, and there were dark circles under his eyes. Blake was unconscious, being dragged on the ground, with a huge wound on his head. I think I probably know why they suddenly turned on each other. As soon as the snow stopped, the authorities quickly sent out the second batch of relief supplies. No one knew if the snow would fall again. Nor did anyone know when the apocalypse would end. People were in panic. Everyone wanted to monopolize this supply and survive longer. Obviously, Ashton was the ultimate winner of this struggle. Ashton sat by the fire, fiddling with the burning ruins, looking dazed, letting two corpses surround him. He took all his clothes off and put them on himself. Night fell, and the signal tower, just repaired, collapsed again under the snow. The window was again making crackling sounds. Many people huddled by the window, shouting in despair, because this time, it wasn't snow, it was hail, hailstones as big as eggs smashed on the ground, on the houses, on the windows. It didn't fall as silently as a snowstorm. The hail showed its power as soon as it arrived. Many bungalows were crushed, losing their only shelter, leaving nothing but to wait for death. Drones were completely unusable, and the third batch of supplies could not be sent before the hail stopped. We put on thick felt clothes and urgently moved the items stored on the top floor to the first and second floors. Although the house was reinforced, no matter how big the hail was, it could not collapse. But unfortunately, the hail was being blown by the wind and smashed at the windows. The windows on the top floor were all shattered, and strong cold winds kept blowing into the house. My father and I were fully dressed, and we struggled with all our might to block the broken windows with wooden boards. Since we had already started, we decided to reinforce all the windows of the entire building. Mom had already boiled water and was waiting for us. Hurry up, wash your hands and face. Getting frostbite can be life-threatening. A warm cloth is placed on the face, and the cold hands and feet finally regain sensation. My father and I both exhale comfortably at the same time. Wife, what are we having today? Dumplings or hot pot? Eat, eat, eat. You only know how to eat. Jacqueline, what do you want to eat? I want to eat chive noodles. Okay, Mom will make it for you right away. My father doesn't make a fuss, and he claps his belly, laughing happily. Noodles, noodles. I also want to eat noodles. I'm going to knead the dough now. The hot and fresh chive noodles are quickly prepared. The bright chive soup is poured over the freshly made noodles, and steam keeps rising. The fragrance is fragrant. While eating, we again instinctively turned on the recorder. This time, we could no longer receive any messages. The increasingly severe weather caused the already fragile signal to completely collapse. At this time, only 8 days had passed since the sudden snowstorm. On the 9th day, the hail did not stop, but instead became more intense. The ground had a snow layer 1 person high mixed with egg-sized ice chunks. It quickly solidified into a solid ice layer. The doors and windows were completely blocked, leaving us unable to move. My father and I specifically carried dozens of pounds of heavy objects to block the main door, in case the door is broken by the continuously pressing snow and ice. On the 10th day, the snow was already reaching the second-floor windows, roughly estimated. There was a 3-meter snow layer. This is still in the wide grassland area. If it were in a city's crowded residential area, the snow layer might have been even higher. On the 11th day, the radio could barely receive a signal. It transmitted many encouraging words. Perseverance is victory. Don't give up. At this point, everything could only be left to fate. The 12th day, the 13th day, the 14th day. As days passed, more and more people became numb, ran out of supplies, and died of cold in their homes. Just when the whole country was despairing about whether humanity would thus be destroyed, the hail stopped silently. The temperature began to gradually rise. The snow melted, and the sky finally showed a rare glimpse of sunlight. Below 60 degrees, below 40 degrees, above 10 degrees. The temperature dropped for 10 straight days, but returned to normal within 10 hours, back to the temperature of June. But before people could even feel happy, a large amount of snow melted, and the flood came. The snow water slowly flowed into the rivers and seas, and the water level rose. All coastal and riverside areas began to be continuously hit by floods. The houses that had already experienced the blizzard were already in a state of disrepair, but fortunately, the country had rich experience in flood control. On the day the snow stopped, they quickly made thorough preparations. They built shelters on higher ground and sent soldiers to rescue residents trapped in buildings one by one. They handled the bodies of those who had frozen to death due to the snowstorm to prevent epidemics from spreading with the water. Signal circuits were gradually restored to normal. My father and I sat in front of the television watching a reporter standing on a high place reporting on the current situation of the country after being hit by 2 consecutive natural disasters. Canoes were speeding through the turbulent river, saving one group of people after another who were trapped. Suddenly, I sat up straight, frowning at the TV screen. On TV, a figure I never expected to see was sitting in a kayak, wrapped in the villa's air conditioner blanket. It was Ashton. I didn't think Ashton was still alive. I went back to my room and immediately turned on the surveillance system to check. The villa had already been washed away by the flood, but fortunately, once the signal was restored, all the recordings from these days were automatically uploaded and saved in the cloud. The real estate agent introduced this surveillance system as having an extremely long standby time, and it was fireproof and waterproof, and it really did work. The surveillance footage captured everything Ashton and the other 2 did over the past 20 days clearly, including how they coldly watched Jenna freeze to death in the room, the second supply drop, after Blake died. Ashton was the only one left with all the supplies, plus, being ruthless, he actually managed to survive. I looked at the TV report about Ashton living in the shelter. My eyes drifted to the terrifying and bloody scenes on the surveillance footage. I immediately downloaded the surveillance footage and found the official phone number for the shelter. After the end of the apocalypse, the authorities quickly gathered nearly 10,000 shelters across the country. And people could call the phone number to seek help. After calling the official phone number, I sent them a copy of the video I had. The authorities took this matter seriously. During the apocalypse, everyone wanted to survive, but these people without any limits returning to normal life would be a series of time bombs. They could explode at any time. After receiving a reply that the authorities would handle the matter carefully, I added that person's phone number to the blacklist. The phone rang, and Ashton answered quickly. "Jacqueline, are you okay?" Ashton could still pretend as if nothing had happened and show concern for me. "Where have you been these days? We called you a lot." Ashton didn't know that his every move was being broadcasted on television right now. In order to boost morale, the authorities broadcasted the situation in the shelter to the whole world. Ashton was right in a corner of the live camera shot at that moment. His facial expression was not as concerned as the words he spoke. It actually contained hidden resentment and bitterness. "Is it because you're resentful that I didn't die in this apocalypse?" I ignored his inquiry about my current situation and instead asked about Jenna's condition. Ashton suddenly became speechless and hesitant. They didn't make it. They died in this apocalypse." Many people really died in this apocalypse, and the flood washed away the broken bodies, scattering them everywhere. No one will know who did it. "Is that so?" "Ashton, you probably don't know that the house you were living in is mine, and I have the surveillance of everything that happened in that house over the past 10 days. My low whisper was like the voice of a devil, lingering in Ashton's ear. Ashton's expression became wild, and his voice gradually got louder. "No way, no way. This is absolutely not possible. You're lying to me. I barely survived. You're lying to me. You must be lying to me." Ashton's wild behavior soon caught the attention of the guards. The officer-like man looked at the picture in his hand and suddenly shouted, "It's this guy, hold him." In the live television broadcast, Ashton was taken away by heavy troops among the terrified refugees. I don't know what happened to Ashton after that, but he was either executed or permanently locked up in a mental institution. The flood receded, and the sky finally cleared completely. Mom was still processing the leftover beef and mutton. Otherwise, the weather in June would soon get bad. Dad drove me back to school himself, smiling and patting my shoulder. "Good girl, go ahead. Dad will wait for you here." I nodded, and went back to school with my backpack for the final defense. Originally, the final defense was after the graduation trip, but the sudden disaster caused the defense to be postponed. I looked at the half-empty classroom and felt a bit sad. This time, many classmates didn't make it through the apocalypse. Although it's sad, life still has to go on. After the defense, I would be officially graduated. I went back to the grassland with my parents, helping my father manage the ranch and my mother make beef jerky. Although I don't see many people, it's also quite interesting. Story 2, The Apocalypse Arrived. And a zombie outbreak ensued. I witnessed with my own eyes the scumbag and I assume you mean a scheming woman here, eating my cat and throwing me out the door. After being reborn, I watched from behind the surveillance cameras as the scumbag and the scheming woman fought each other for resources. Meanwhile, in the safe house I had built in advance, I played with my cat, fed the chickens, and took care of the fish. 1. Rebirth. I woke up from a nightmare. My hands instinctively clutching my neck tightly. For a moment, I almost felt as if I was choking myself to death. As I gasped for air, I gradually came to my senses, and my body was soaked in sweat. The smell of blood and decay seemed to still linger around me, and the pain of being bitten by zombies was still vivid in my mind. However, the warmth of the quilt and the soft light outside the window confirmed that it had just been a dream. I turned on my phone, and the date showed January 10th, 2024, a month ago. Weren't we already past the Spring Festival Eve? What was going on? Had I been reborn? As a female college student in the 21st century who had received higher education, I didn't really believe in the concept of rebirth. As if suddenly remembering something, I got up and started searching. Finally, I found my cat, Nini, in its cat bed. I picked up the sleeping cat and burst into tears. Was it really just a dream? This real feeling and the memory of over a month couldn't be explained. Looking at the bustling and lively scenery outside the window, I stayed up all night. The next morning, while I was in a daze, my phone suddenly vibrated. My best friend, Leah, called. Ruby, I lost my job. Woo woo, I have nowhere to go now. Can I stay at your place for a while? Ruby, why aren't you saying anything? Don't you want me to come? Am I bothering you? Then I won't come. It's okay. I was just in a daze. But I have something to do during the day. Come over tonight. Then I'll come tonight. You're still the most reliable. Ruby, you're such a great friend. After hanging up the phone, I couldn't help but be taken aback. This was exactly the same as the memory in my dream. At this moment, I was finally sure that I had indeed been reborn. In my dream, my best friend moved into my house today, and my fiancé, Jordan, also moved in early on the pretext that we were already engaged. I naively thought that he wanted to strengthen our relationship before marriage. I didn't know that he and my best friend had already been having an affair behind my back. They just wanted to conspire to cheat me out of my money and house. On the morning of the Spring Festival Eve, there was suddenly a loud bang outside. Someone jumped off a building. Strangely enough, this person didn't die. Instead, they got up and, in an abnormal posture, went crazy and pounced on the people beside them. Frantically biting and eating their flesh and blood, the person who was bitten was covered in blood. After twitching for a while, they struggled to stand up and, just like the crazy person, grabbed the person who was trying to help and started biting them too. The people around were so scared that they fled in all directions, and chaos ensued. My phone was flooded with messages, all of which were videos of people biting and being bitten, just like the zombies in the movies. The TV broadcast an emergency notice. Biting incidents had occurred everywhere. Currently, it was known that this was a new type of virus with extremely strong infectivity. Apart from being bitten, the other transmission routes were unknown. Everyone was requested to stay at home in isolation, not go out, and wait for rescue. However, there weren't many supplies at home, only enough for 3 people to eat for a week. 5 days passed, although we had tried to eat less. The remaining supplies were running out, coupled with the occasional screams and growls from outside. It made people very anxious. I saw my best friend run over to Jordan and say something. Jordan got up and walked towards Nini. I immediately sensed something was wrong and ran to stop him, but I was kicked to the ground. Jordan grabbed my hair and slapped my face violently. His ferocious expression showed how hard he was hitting me. It's all your fault, you bitch. I'll kill you. If it weren't for the house and money, I wouldn't even want to look at you, but since you often work out, your meat should be delicious. I was so scared by these words that my eyes widened, and I struggled even harder. During the beating, Leah went to the tool room and got a rope. 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. Despite my efforts to struggle, I was still tied up. I was tied up tightly, and a towel was stuffed in my mouth, and I was thrown aside. After a while, Jordan came out of the room, still holding my cat in his hand. I kept struggling, but it was useless. I couldn't even make a sound. I could only watch helplessly as they ate Nini, and I was powerless to stop them. Although Leah cleaned up quickly, it seemed that the zombies still smelled the blood, and a large number of them gathered and lingered at the door. looking at Leah and Jordan hugging each other on the sofa. I remembered that a friend had euphemistically reminded me before. Suddenly, I realized that these two people seemed to have been having an affair for a long time, but I had been too stupid to believe it. The next day, Jordan came towards me with a knife in his hand, wearing a strange smile on his face. He said to me softly, "I'll be gentle." When the knife touched my skin, I finally experienced what it was like to feel the pain of cutting flesh. I felt my flesh gradually separating from my body in pain. All I could think about was the pain. The pain made my whole body tremble. I was in so much pain that I passed out and then woke up in an instant, and I was in too much pain to make a sound. Perhaps the zombies outside the door smelled the strong smell of blood and started pounding on the door continuously. Although the door was very sturdy and the few zombies at the door couldn't break it open, the sound was very loud. "This door won't hold up for too long, right? How about throwing her out to attract the zombies?" Leah said to Jordan in fear. Jordan was also panicked because the loud sound of the door being pounded would also attract more zombies, and then the door might not be able to hold up. So, I was thrown out. At the moment I was thrown out, my heart was as cold as ashes. The zombies smelled the blood and swarmed towards me, pouncing on me and biting me. It turned out that all of this was real. Anger and despair filled my heart. The two people I trusted the most would definitely have to pay the price this time. After recognizing the fact that I had been reborn, I had a series of plans in my heart. I admit that I'm not someone with an overly compassionate heart, nor do I have the ability to fight desperately against the zombies in the apocalypse, to save the world from the depths of misery, and to show the glory of human nature. I just want to lie low and survive in the apocalypse and watch the scumbag and the scheming woman get their just desserts. There were still 30 days until the apocalypse arrived. I had to hurry up and prepare things, and I also had to prepare a few big gifts for them. I quickly started formulating my doomsday self-protection plan. Leah was coming to my house at night. Before that, I first arranged the house properly. Without hesitation, I called a local surveillance camera seller and ordered 5 surveillance cameras that supported both battery and power supply. I made an appointment for them to come and install them in the afternoon. Then I called my boss and took a 1-month sick leave. I couldn't waste the morning either. I rummaged through my passbook and important things at home. Everything that could be cashed in had to be cashed in. In the apocalypse, money was the least valuable thing. My parents had died in a car accident 3 months ago. Because the road section was remote and there were no surveillance cameras, the hit-and-run driver still hadn't been found. Jordan accompanied me to handle the funeral arrangements, after learning that my parents had left me a large flat in the city center of B City, which was worth about 15 million yuan, and there was also about 6 million yuan in savings. He said he wanted to start a business and asked me to support him. "Your parents are gone, I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. After we get married, everything I have will be yours. You're the only one in my heart. You're so excellent. I have to work hard to be worthy of you." In order to show that he loved me very much, he even bought a ring and proposed to me. Under his persuasion, I was quickly brainwashed and transferred all my savings to him without hesitation. Later, I found out that he didn't start a business. Instead, he used the money to pay off his gambling debts and continued gambling. He not only lost all the savings but also owed more than 1 million yuan. It wasn't until the morning of the Spring Festival Eve that I answered a debt collection call for Jordan and learned about all of this. That was when we were arguing that we discovered the outbreak of the zombie virus outside. He came to my house not only to have an affair with Leah but also to avoid the debt collectors after the zombie outbreak. He was even glad that he didn't have to pay off his gambling debts. "I wouldn't be so stupid this time. You owe me, and I'll get it back from you double." I secretly made up my mind. While rummaging through the passbook, I found a folder of my mother's, which actually contained the certificate and key of my grandfather's old house. I remembered that I had been there a few times when I was a child. It was a villa built on the halfway up a mountain in the suburbs. There was only this one house around, and there was a waterfall beside it. There were only dozens of households in the mountain village at the foot of the mountain. A few years ago, this place was planned to be a scenic area. My family didn't agree to the development, so it was separated from the rest. Later, due to financial problems, the renovation of the scenic area had been suspended for more than a year. I was just worried about where to choose as my own safe house. This was the best shelter. I decided to go and check the situation tomorrow and then find someone to urgently renovate and reinforce the old house. There was only a month left until the spring festival, so I had to hurry up and find a construction team. The most important thing was still the issue of supplies. I spent the whole noon at the desk thinking about what I needed and how long it would take to prepare them. By the time the surveillance camera installer came, I had already listed 5 pages of A4 paper. The installer asked me in confusion why I wanted to install 5 surveillance cameras. I could only say that there had been a thief in the house a few days ago, and I didn't feel safe. If I wasn't at ease, I would be afraid to sleep at night. The installer expressed his understanding and told me that the front door could be replaced with a visible password lock, which would be more secure. I slapped my head. That's right, why didn't I think of that? Master, do you know anyone who can install a password lock? Coincidentally, young lady, I have a colleague who does this. How about I call him and ask him to come and install it now? The installer asked me enthusiastically. That would be great. Thank you, master. After the master installed it, I secretly gave him an extra 500 yuan and hinted to him that the epidemic would definitely get worse after the Spring Festival, and he should stock up on more supplies. The master responded with a smile, and I didn't know if he would take it to heart. This was all I could do. This time, I just wanted to take care of myself. In the apocalypse, being overly compassionate could cost me my life. I packed up my cat's things and sent Nini to a pet boarding place. I would be very busy recently and didn't have time to take care of it, and it would be more dangerous to leave it at home. Nini licked my face, and I was determined to protect it this time. When I got home, I resisted the urge to put drugs in the food and cooked all the vegetables in the refrigerator. I was waiting for Leah and Jordan. In my memory, they came together. At that time, I naively thought that they had met downstairs by chance, but in fact, they had already been together for a long time, right? At 7 o'clock, Jordan and Leah knocked on the door. Sure enough, the two of them came together. I used all my self-control to suppress my emotions and face them calmly. We just happened to meet downstairs. Seeing my stiff expression, Jordan thought I was angry and explained to me, "Why did you change the password lock? I thought that in the future, you could come in at any time without a key." I said, pretending to be considerate. "If I didn't change the password lock, how could I give you the big gifts? I've already cooked the meal." "Oh, right. I'm going on a business trip to another province tomorrow. I'm not sure how many days it will be." There was not a trace of reluctance in their eyes, and they even seemed a little pleased. During the meal, Jordan brought up the matter of me supporting his business again. I sneered in my heart but pretended to believe him and asked him various questions. "Wife, trust me, after I make money, I will definitely love you well." Jordan took my hand and said, "However." Leah across the table couldn't stand it anymore and directly pushed her bowl and went back to the room. I used to think that she left to avoid suspicion, but now it seemed that she was throwing a tantrum. She didn't even try to avoid being seen now. "Jordan, I believe you, but I don't have that much money on me. The deposit is in a 3-year fixed-term deposit, and it will mature in 2 months. There's almost 300,000 yuan in interest. It would be a great loss to withdraw it now." This 300,000 yuan was originally intended to buy you a car. What should we do then? I'm really in a hurry here. Looking at Jordan's face, which was still a bit reluctant to part with the 300,000 yuan in interest, I felt disgusted. After a moment of silence, I spoke first. "I've thought about it carefully. I can't delay your business, but it's a pity to give up the 300,000 yuan. I just suddenly thought that we could mortgage the house. In this way, the money can be obtained in less than half a month." "Really?" Jordan asked in surprise. "Of course, what's mine is yours. I believe you, but now there's a problem. There's still a mortgage of 2 million yuan on this house. We have to pay off the mortgage first before we can remortgage it, but I don't have any money left and can't come up with this 2 million yuan. If we can raise this 2 million yuan, we can get a loan of 10 million yuan. I don't have 2 million yuan either. Can't you come up with some more?" Jordan started to hesitate when he heard that he also had to pay some money. "You know that I gave all my money to you before. Once this 2 million yuan is paid off, we can get a new loan of 10 million yuan right away. If not, I'll pay you back when the 6 million yuan matures. Let me think about it." Jordan was a bit swayed. I wasn't afraid that he wouldn't take the bait. After all, this deal seemed profitable for him no matter how he looked at it, and he wouldn't expect that I, who had been so dependent on him, would deceive him. Moreover, his gambling debts were quite urgent. At night, Jordan wanted to sleep in the same room as me, but I sent him to the guest room on the pretext that I had to get up early and didn't want to disturb his rest. I was sure that during the time I was away, these two people would definitely stay in my house. 2 January 12, 2024. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I left with my luggage. I also moved all the supplies stored at home into the trunk of the car and drove towards the old house in the outskirts. After driving for 3 hours, I found the Dakingshan scenic area from memory. There was only one road that could lead to the old house by car, which was also one of the favorable conditions. Most of the young and strong villagers at the foot of the mountain had gone to the city to work, and most of those left behind were the elderly and children. An old man stopped my car when he saw that I didn't seem to be from around here and asked me what I was doing. I said that I was the project leader of the scenic area and came to inspect it. The project would be restarted in a while, and there might be many people delivering building materials during this period. I gave the villagers a heads up in advance. In the apocalypse, the scariest thing wasn't the zombies but human nature. I still understood the principle that having something valuable could bring disaster. The old man smiled and told me to go quickly. After all, if the scenic area was completed, they could also turn their homes into farmhouses to make money. I continued driving up the mountain. Finally, I saw the old house on the halfway up the mountain. I remembered that my parents had once said that they planned to live here after retirement to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city. There are many plants climbing on the white walls, and it looks rather desolate from the outside. The yard is approximately 500 square meters in size. The house has 2 above-ground floors and 2 underground floors. The 2 underground floors were specially built in the past to avoid mountain bandits, and the entrance is very concealed. The courtyard wall is about 3 meters high and needs to be made higher. An electric fence should also be installed on the courtyard wall. There are tall trees surrounding the yard, which can serve as a natural barrier. The yard is large, and several warehouses can be built in it to store things. In the backyard, a vegetable plot can be reclaimed, and a pool can be built beside it to raise fish. A chicken coop also needs to be built to raise quail chickens, as other animals make too much noise. From the perspective of the previous life, although zombies have no consciousness and move rather slowly, they are extremely sensitive to sounds and also have a sharp sense of smell. Once they hear a sound or smell the smell of blood, they will rush over like crazy. Soundproof materials should be installed in all rooms, including the chicken coop. In all directions, a circle of mint should also be planted around the yard. The strong smell of mint can interfere with the zombies. I opened my address book and called my father's friend who used to be in the real estate business. Uncle Ethan, it's me. Ruby, I have a small favor to ask. I want to renovate my parents' old house. Could you lend me a small construction team? I feel more at ease with people I know. The reason for turning to Uncle Ethan is not only that I feel at ease with an acquaintance, but also that his construction team is from another province, which eliminates a lot of potential risks. I talked to Uncle Ethan about my requirements, and he said he would send people over tomorrow. I also took the opportunity to remind him that the epidemic is likely to get worse around the spring festival, so he should stock up on more supplies. That's all I can say. Next, I need to start preparing supplies. The supplies definitely can't be directly delivered to the old house. I need to rent a warehouse first to store the supplies and then secretly transport them here. In the apocalypse, there are some things that have to be guarded against. I also need to find a place to live that is convenient for shopping. Fortunately, I have sufficient funds, so I can go all out when buying things. In the afternoon, I drove to the nearest living area, found a real estate agent, and rented a 2-bedroom, 1 living room apartment with a garage. I went to see it, and the garage is very large and can accommodate a van, which is exactly what I want. The rent is a bit expensive, a total of 5,000 yuan a month. With 1 month's rent as a deposit and 1 month's rent in advance, I paid the rent for 2 months and the deposit, a total of 15,000 yuan. Then I took various documents to the bank to apply for a mortgage loan. I can get a loan of about 10 million yuan by mortgaging my house. I also transferred the money in my passbook to my bank card. The loan approval period is about half a month. 6 million yuan should be enough for these half a month. There is still 1 month left before the zombie outbreak, and 16 million yuan should be enough. When I got back to the rental house and lay on the bed looking at the surveillance footage, sure enough, the two of them started getting affectionate as soon as I left. Jordan was holding Leah and sitting on the sofa. Jordan, how is it? Did she agree to give you the money? I've taken a fancy to a house recently and it's just right to buy it. Yes, I actually have something to discuss with you. Do you have 2 million yuan? Jordan took Leah's hand and said, where on earth would I get 2 million yuan? Leah pushed Jordan's hand away. Her deposit is in a fixed-term account. If she withdraws it now, she will lose 300,000 yuan. We can buy a car with this 300,000 yuan. It's too much of a loss to withdraw it. Now we can mortgage her house and get 10 million yuan. But we need 2 million yuan to pay off the loan first before we can apply for a new loan, after 2 months. We can still get 6 million yuan, then I'll break up with her and I can be with my baby forever. As Jordan spoke, his hand reached for Leah's chest. Leah slapped Jordan's hand away. It does sound like a good deal, but I really don't have 2 million yuan. I heard that you recently took over a project worth 2 million yuan. Jordan, what do you mean? Do you want me to embezzle public funds? Leah's face turned cold. It's just for a short-term transfer. The money will come back soon. Then we can do whatever we want with so much money. I didn't listen to the subsequent argument anymore. Anyway, she will definitely take the bait in the end. The gambling debt won't wait. It turns out that he didn't just deceive me, he also deceived his mistress. The only thing I can't figure out is why Leah treated me like this. I've known her for 10 years, and I always thought we were the best of friends. But I never expected it to turn out like this. I ordered a serving of crayfish takeout. I should enjoy it while I can, because it will be hard to get in the future. After eating, I took a hot bath and nestled comfortably in the bed to sleep. January 13, 2024. In the morning, I drove to the old house, and the construction team had already arrived. I talked to the project manager in detail about my renovation plan. He looked at me as if I were an alien. Young lady, you're building yourself a prison here. I have no choice. I'm a young girl living alone. It's safer to build it like this, but you can't raise the courtyard wall to 6 meters. It will block too much light. Manager Zach tried his best to persuade me. Chase, just build it according to what I said, otherwise, I'll be scared and won't be able to sleep at night. Don't worry, I can accept whatever it looks like as long as it's sturdy and safe. It should be able to withstand even a tiger. Build it to the level of a bank vault. The budget doesn't matter. And I need it to be done as soon as possible, as fast as you can. Well, all right, leave it to me. Don't worry, you can come to take over the house in 10 days. After talking to manager Zach, I left. I'll leave the rest to him. I still have a lot of things to prepare. I looked for supermarkets for sale in the nearby living area. Buying things directly is too high profile. Taking over a supermarket and using the excuse of restocking to buy supplies is just right. I found a small supermarket nearby that the owner was eager to sell because he was going back to his hometown to develop during the spring festival. I took over the store along with the goods. The owner also gave me the contact information of the suppliers, which made it even more convenient. I asked the owner to pack all the goods on the shelves in the supermarket before he left. The reason I gave was that I wanted to expand the business and needed to renovate. So I had to put the goods away first. Similarly, I went to look for pharmacies nearby. I majored in pharmacy myself and have a pharmacist's qualification certificate, so I'm qualified to open a pharmacy. I quickly took over a pharmacy at a high price. I also asked the owner to pack all the medicine into boxes one by one. People will always get sick in the apocalypse. Instead of struggling to figure out what medicine is needed, it's better to move all the medicine from the pharmacy back home. There will definitely be a complete variety of medicines. Now, due to the epidemic, many commonly used medicines are not so easy to buy. Anyway, the house and the yard are so big that they can hold all the medicine. Just move the whole pharmacy back home. Now I'm not afraid of buying too much but rather of buying too little. I plan to buy a lot of everything. Anyway, I should have enough money. I know that it takes a long time to develop and produce a vaccine. I must stockpile enough supplies to hold out until humanity wins, so I plan to prepare all the supplies according to the amount for 10 years. Once again, I'm not afraid of buying too much but of buying too little. I drove to the car rental place and rented 2 vans and a refrigerated truck. I gave the owner an extra 500 yuan and asked him to drive one of the vans to the garage I rented and the other to the door of the supermarket. In the evening, I went to have hot pot, since I was alone. I put a big teddy bear doll opposite me, looking at the people around me eating and chatting. Everything seemed so peaceful and quiet. I really cherish these last peaceful days. When I got home and turned on the surveillance, I found that Jordan and Leah were still arguing. Once I get the money, I'll break up with her. And then we can buy a house and get married. Okay, Jordan continued to coax Leah. This scumbag doesn't want to spend a penny himself and just wants to get something for nothing. I bet that Jordan will definitely call me tomorrow morning. I turned off the screen and took a shower. Tonight is the online shopping New Year's goods festival, and I'm going to start shopping like crazy. For January 14th, 2024. After a whole night of shopping, I have already spent hundreds of thousands of yuan. For things like rice, flour, and cooking oil, it's better to order them from the supermarket and the suppliers, buy them just a few days before they are needed so that they can have a longer shelf life. But for some small items, it's more convenient to buy them online. I filled in the address of the rented garage. I'll ask the delivery guy to put the packages in the van. The old house is in a remote location, and it's not convenient for the delivery service. Moreover, I don't want too many people to know the existence of the old house. I sorted out the orders: 50 barrels of laundry detergent, 100 tubes of toothpaste, 100 toothbrushes, 50 bottles of shampoo, 50 tubes of facial cleanser, 100 cases of toilet paper, 100 cases of facial tissues, 50 cases of daily use sanitary napkins, 50 cases of night use sanitary napkins, 30 sets of bed sheets, pillowcases, and 2 pillow covers, 10 thin quilts and 10 thick quilts, 10 pillows, 20 bottles of insecticide, 50 bottles of dishwashing liquid, 10 cases of disposable plates, 10 cases of disposable chopsticks, 2 cases of disposable spoons, clothes, 50 sets of comfortable home clothes, 50 sets of sportswear, 20 sets of cotton padded clothes and down jackets, 50 sets of summer clothes, 100 sets of underwear and panties, 100 pairs of socks, 10 cases of disposable underwear, 20 pairs of comfortable slippers, 10 pairs of sturdy military shoes, 20 pairs of lightweight sports shoes, 20 pairs of cotton shoes, 10 pairs of outdoor shoes, 10 pairs of rain boots. In the end, water resources may be very precious, so I don't want to waste water on washing dishes and clothes. In a situation like the apocalypse, there are usually extreme weather conditions as well, so I also need to buy some things for keeping warm: 5 electric blankets, 10 cases of hand warmers, 5 small sun heaters, 10 electric heaters, 2 high-power binoculars, 5 drones, a Switch game console, hundreds of paper books, learning materials for various industries and occupations, a case of solar charging treasures, and some fitness equipment, such as a stationary bike that can generate electricity, dumbbells, etc., 50 bags of various beans and grains, each weighing 5 kilograms, buy double the amount of soybeans because they have more uses, 100 boxes of tea, 100 boxes of coffee, 100 bottles of honey, 100 cans of milk powder. I'm afraid the protein powder in the pharmacy may not be enough, so I also ordered 50 cans. 20 cases of each kind of vacuum-packed nuts, all kinds of small toys to kill time, such as Lego blocks, jigsaw puzzles. I placed orders for anything that looked interesting. Cat supplies. The shelf life of cat food is generally 2 to 3 years, so I only bought 200 gene, 300 bags of cat litter, 500 cans of various cat food, and bought some random snacks, and other cat supplies, maintenance products, and medicine, some vegetable seeds that are easy to grow, fertilizers, nutrient soil, tools, etc. 20 bottles of perfume, which can disrupt the zombie's sense of smell in case of an emergency. Because I stayed up late shopping, I slept until the afternoon of the next day. There were more than a dozen missed calls from Jordan on my phone. He really can't wait. Just then, the phone rang. Ruby, what do you mean? Why didn't you answer the phone? Jordan started scolding me before I could say anything. How long will it take for the loan to come through? It can be reapproved soon. I'll pull some strings. It will take at least 7 days to come through. I tried to make the time shorter. Okay, when will you be back? Jordan asked. I'll probably be back in a few days after I finish my work here. Then I'll transfer the money when you come back, Jordan said and hung up the phone. It seems that this scumbag is quite cautious, but it doesn't matter whether he transfers the money or not. I'm not in a hurry. I just want to cause him some trouble before the apocalypse. I drove to the old house to check on the situation and talk to Manager Zach about the specific details. Manager Zach patted his belly and promised that he would definitely make me satisfied. During the last outbreak, I only survived for 6 days. I don't know if there will be power outages and water cutoffs later, but it's better to be prepared, so I still need to do a lot of preparations. 5. January 22nd, 2024. I've been supervising the construction at the old house these days. Finally, it was completed according to my wishes. After 8 days, I gave each person a red envelope of 5,000 yuan and asked them to go back to their hometowns and stock up on more supplies for the Spring Festival. That's all I can do. I'm very satisfied with this home where I will live for a long time in the future. The courtyard wall and the gate are nearly half a meter thick, which gives me a great sense of security, not to mention breaking through this gate by force. It would probably take several explosions to blow it up. Two small warehouses of dozens of square meters each were built on the left side of the front yard, which can be used to store gasoline barrels, diesel barrels, gasoline generators, and diesel generators. I ordered a 500 kilowatt silent energy storage battery container online and placed it on the right side of the yard. Manager Zach also helped install a hydroelectric generator beside the nearby waterfall. As long as there is water in the waterfall, I will have electricity. The roof is covered with solar panels, which are connected to the electricity storage box in the yard. In this way, even if there is no water in the waterfall, relying on solar energy alone is enough for my daily life. Thinking of the worst-case scenario where there is no water and no sun, I also bought a gasoline generator and a diesel generator and placed them in the newly built small warehouse. The warehouse is also soundproofed. I secretly installed 20 night vision surveillance cameras around the house and the yard, including on the way here. The area around the house is monitored in all directions. The house has 2 above-ground floors and 2 underground floors. Every room is soundproofed, except for the room on the second underground floor where I will live. All the things in the other rooms have been cleared out to make room for storing supplies. I chose the second underground floor as my living place because the light won't be seen from the outside when I turn on the lights, and the soundproofing is also better. To prevent some unexpected situations, important supplies will be placed on the 2 underground floors. The 2 above-ground floors will mainly store clothes, daily necessities, books, etc. This ensures that I can still survive even if I have to give up the 2 above-ground floors. A cellar was dug beside the well on the side of the yard to serve as an ice house, which is connected to the first underground floor of the house and is used to store various frozen meats and other products bought later. A garbage disposer was installed in the house to deal with the domestic waste in the future. Since the old house is on the mountain and far from the urban area, the water here is directly pumped from the groundwater. After installing a water purifier, I'm not particularly worried about the outside water being polluted, but I still placed 2 huge water storage tanks in a room on the first floor to store some domestic water. A rainwater collector was installed on the roof and is directly connected to one of the water storage tanks. Some commonly used electrical appliances have also been prepared. I'm afraid I won't be able to repair them, so I bought 2 of each kind as spares. Because an ice house was built, I only bought 2 refrigerators and 1 freezer and placed them beside the kitchen on the first underground floor. Now I can start purchasing supplies. I've also been shopping online during this period. As long as I see something I need, I buy it. With the final payment for the construction team. The money in my card is almost all spent. Fortunately, the bank called me and informed me that the loan was approved today and asked me to go through the relevant procedures. Just then, Jordan called. I almost forgot about this guy. Ruby, have you finished your work? Why haven't you come back yet? I miss you so much. I almost felt sick to my stomach from his words. There's new work here. I might not be able to come back for a long time. What? Didn't you say you'd be back in a few days? Then what about the loan? I couldn't help but want to laugh when I heard that Jordan was getting anxious. He couldn't even wait for just a few days. Do you have 2 million yuan? If so, I can ask my father's friend at the bank to help me handle it remotely. Then I'll transfer the money to you. You deal with it. Sure enough, he took the bait. Shortly after I hung up the phone, the transfer came through. 2 million yuan was credited to my account. It's still far from what he owes me. And there's more fun to come. I drove to the supermarket, took out the supplier's phone number, and placed an order with the supplier. 100 bags of rice, each weighing 25 kilograms, 100 bags of white flour, each weighing 10 kilograms, 200 barrels of blended oil, each weighing 5 kilograms, 10 cases of olive oil, 20 cases each of various seasonings such as salt, monosodium glutamate, starch, white sugar, pepper powder, chili powder, cumin powder, roasted sesame seeds, soy sauce, oyster sauce, dark soy sauce, cooking wine, sesame oil, fermented soybean paste, hot pot base, etc., 100 cases of instant noodles in various flavors, 50 cases of sausages, 20 cases of self-heating hot pots, 20 cases of self-heating rice, 20 cases of compressed biscuits, 20 cases of dried noodles, 20 cases of meat canned food, 50 cases of fruit canned food, 100 cases of mineral water with 24 bottles per case, 200 barrels of mineral water with 5L per barrel, 50 cases of beer, 50 cases of baijiu, Chinese liquor. Alcohol is a hard currency. Even if I don't drink it myself, it can be used in many ways. The shelf life of bread is not long, and the inventory in the supermarket is enough. The same goes for the inventory of milk. I thought about what other snacks I liked and also ordered 50 cases of each. With the inventory in the supermarket, I should be able to live comfortably for 10 years. I drove to the garage I rented. The van was already filled with express packages. When the delivery guys called me before, I asked them to open the door themselves and put the packages directly into the van. I transferred 2,000 yuan to each of them, and they were very happy to do me this favor. I drove the van back to the old house. On the way, I filled up the modified fuel tank at a gas station. There have been many vans passing by during this period, and the villagers are already used to it, so it won't arouse suspicion. I pressed the door opening button, and the gate opened automatically. The more I looked at this gate, the more I liked it. I drove the van into the yard, got out of the car, took out the oil pump, and pumped the oil into the oil barrels I had prepared before. Each barrel can hold 200 liters of oil. I prepared 20 gasoline barrels and 20 diesel barrels in the warehouse, and I can pump 1 barrel each time I come back. It should be almost full in the last few days. After doing all these things, I started the arduous task of moving the goods. After 6 hours of moving, I finally moved all the express packages to the living room on the second underground floor. Unpacking these things slowly in the future will also be a kind of fun. Without taking a rest, I drove the van back to the supermarket and parked it at the door, waiting for the goods to be delivered tomorrow. I have already agreed with the supplier that they will directly move the goods into the van. If one van can't hold them, they will use 2 vans. Thinking about the goods I'm about to move, I silently shed some bitter tears. It was not easy to get back to the rental house, and I fell asleep without even taking a shower. January 23, 2024. In the morning, I went to the bank and completed the remaining procedures. Looking at the 10 million yuan in my card, I could continue shopping. When living alone in the apocalypse, spiritual entertainment is also quite important. People will definitely have problems if they are in a state of depression for a long time. I went to the computer city and, on the pretext of the company giving out year-end benefits, bought 5 desktop computers, 5 laptops, 10 mobile phones, and 10 tablets. I asked the salesperson to install all kinds of software and standalone games on each device. Next door, I also bought 2 projectors. I found a stall and bought 60 memory cards with the largest capacity. I asked the guy at the stall to rush to find someone to download things for me. 10 cards were for storing movies, 10 for TV series, 10 for variety shows, 10 for various courses, 10 for documentaries, and 10 for ebooks of novels. I gave the guy a tip of 5,000 yuan for his trouble. He was very happy to take the job and promised to finish it within 3 days. I put these things in the trunk of the car and headed to the next destination. I turned the car into a very secluded alley and walked into a small store. I learned through channels that there is a store here selling self-defense weapons. When renovating the old house before, I accidentally found a shotgun, which also came with 30 bullets. I had played with shooting before and tried the gun, and it still worked. However, this gun can't be used casually because the sound is too loud, which will definitely attract zombies and might be even more dangerous. Now I just need to buy some knives. If there's anything else I like, I can also buy it. I bought 2 machetes. When I saw the bow hanging on the wall, I bought it too and also bought all the arrows in the store. Just as I was about to leave, the store owner stopped me and mysteriously took out a modified nail gun and a steel shotgun from under the counter and asked me if I wanted them. Of course I did. After paying, I put all the things in the trunk. At this moment, I also realized one thing. In the apocalypse, there will definitely be many people with guns and high-tech weapons. These people are much scarier than zombies. Before going home, I deliberately drove around the city several times. After confirming that no one was following me, I drove to the supermarket. The supplier had already put the goods in 2 vans. I put the things I bought today in the passenger seat of the van and drove one of the vans back to the old house. I had to start moving the goods again. If I didn't want to expose the abundant supplies here, I really wouldn't want to go through all this trouble myself. January 28, 2024. After moving the goods for several days, I finally moved all the things from the supermarket and the pharmacy into the house. There are less than half a month left before the zombie outbreak. I'm afraid the outbreak might come earlier, so I don't dare to rest for too long. In the morning, I went to the other side of the city and found 2 water stations. I ordered 100 large barrels of mineral water from each of them and asked them to deliver the water to the old house at different times. They would unload the water in the yard, and then I would move it in bit by bit, passing by a 4S store of off-road vehicles. I had an idea and went in to order an off-road vehicle and sent it for modification. My plan is to stay in the old house all the time, but I also need to be prepared for unexpected situations. 8. January 29, 2024. I went to the car rental place to pick up the refrigerated truck. Today, I was going to start buying meat and frozen products. I drove to the frozen products wholesale market. There are not only frozen products sold here, but also all kinds of other things. Area A sells dried goods. Area B sells semi-finished frozen foods. Area C sells seafood and aquatic products. Area D sells pork, beef, and mutton, and Area E sells poultry. Entering Area A, I bought 10 cases of each kind of dried vegetables, 20 Jinhua hams, 100 jin of cured meat, 100 cured sausages, and 20 jin of salted fish. In Area B, I bought 20 cases each of all kinds of frozen vegetables, frozen dumplings, frozen noodles, and semi-finished frozen products. In Area C, I only bought a dozen or so cases of frozen fish and shrimp. I don't really like them myself, but I can cook them for Nini. In Area D, I booked 3 pigs, 500 jin of mutton, and 500 jin of beef from the boss and asked him to cut the meat into portions of 10 jin each, vacuum pack them, and I would come to pick them up the day after tomorrow. The boss was willing to take the order after I paid him some extra money. I also found a store selling beef and mutton byproducts and bought 10 cases of each kind in the store. In Area E, I bought 50 whole chickens, 50 bags each of chicken drumsticks and chicken wings, 50 bags of chicken breasts, and 50 bags of chicken feet, all of which were required to be vacuum packed. After loading the car, I mechanically drove back to the old house to unload and move the goods again. But as the days got closer and closer, I was so nervous that I didn't dare to relax at all. Due to overwork, I was feeling dizzy and eventually fell ill. I finally felt a little better after sleeping for 2 days. People are really fragile, even the slightest change can change everything. 9. January 31st, 2024. After several days of rest, I finally recovered. Jordan had called dozens of times in the past few days, but I didn't answer any of them. I didn't have the energy to deal with him. I called him back, and he picked up the phone immediately. Ruby, what kind of tricks are you playing? Didn't you say the loan would be approved in 7 days? Why hasn't it come through yet? I'm not sure either. I said it would take at least 7 days before. Don't worry, just wait a little longer. It should come through soon. I'm going back to work now. You'd better not be lying to me, or you'll regret it. Before I could listen to the end of his words, I hung up the phone. I ignored his continuous calls and text messages. I changed to a new phone and inserted the newly bought SIM card. I still had a lot to prepare in the next few days, and there was no need to waste time on such a scumbag. I went to the flower, bird, fish, and insect market and bought more than 20 fish fry and 30 quail chickens. I also bought enough feed and settled them in the backyard. I built a small greenhouse in the vegetable plot so that I can grow vegetables even in winter. I went to the frozen products wholesale market and picked up the meat I had ordered a few days ago. Together with the barreled water in the yard, it took me several days to move all these things. 10. February 5th, 2024. I originally planned to buy fresh vegetables and fruits in the last day or two, but I was afraid that the zombie outbreak might come earlier, so in the morning, I went to the agricultural trade wholesale market and bought all kinds of fresh vegetables, fruits, and nuts. I bought more of the ones with a long shelf life and less of the ones with a short shelf life. On the way back, I picked up Nini. The little guy was quite excited about the new environment and just ran around and played. According to the storage tutorials I found online, for all kinds of vegetables and fruits, I set aside the ones to be eaten recently. The rest that could be frozen were put in the freezer, and the ones that couldn't be frozen were sliced and dried in the dehydrator. 11. February 6th, 2024. There are 3 days left before the zombie outbreak. I plan to go out one last time, pick up the modified off-road vehicle, and drive to the nearest large shopping mall and supermarket for one last revengeful shopping spree. I bought whatever I liked. When I couldn't carry it anymore, I asked the salesperson to help me send it to the car in the underground garage. When I got to the supermarket, I pushed 2 shopping carts and filled them with all kinds of my favorite snacks, dairy products, etc. When I got home, I checked all the supplies, equipment, and facilities. And everything was fine. I closed the gate and cut off the power supply to the gate. Without reconnecting the electricity, the gate couldn't be opened. I covered the off-road vehicle with branches. Even if someone used a drone to look, they wouldn't be able to tell that there was a vehicle there. There are trees all around the yard. As long as people don't go up the mountain, they can't see the house from the foot of the mountain. Looking at the results of my nearly a month's hard work, I felt a great sense of security. If my parents were still alive, living like this would also be very happy, right? My solitary life in the apocalypse officially began. In the evening, I cooked 3 dishes and 1 soup for myself and also cooked a fish for Nini. It can be regarded as celebrating that I finally have the confidence to survive in the apocalypse. 12. February 7th, 2024. This was the most soundly I had slept since I was reborn. I relaxed rarely, holding a bag of potato chips. I turned on the surveillance screen. Jordan was arguing with Leah. You said you'd pay me back the money in 10 days. Where is it? I can't get through to that bitch's phone. I called her company, and they said she's on vacation. She didn't go on a business trip at all. This is all a trap she set up. Damn it, don't let me catch her. How am I going to fill this hole of 2 million yuan? Jordan, don't push me. What? Do you still want to tell that thing? Don't forget, you were there too. Do you think you'll be better off if she finds out about it? I put down the potato chips in my hand. What exactly were they talking about? But then both of them fell silent and didn't say anything more. So boring. I took out my phone and sent a text message to Leah's leader. After a while, I saw Leah answering the phone, and her face turned very pale. What should I do? The leader wants me to go to the company. It seems that he has found out. I don't want to go to jail. Jordan sat on the bed in silence. What do you mean? You asked me to take out the money, and now you're just sitting there doing nothing. Jordan, if I go to jail, you won't be able to get away with it either. Is the charge of hit and run enough to send you to jail with me? My mind seemed to be struck by lightning, combining with what they just said. Could it be that the hit and run they were talking about had something to do with my parents? I didn't listen to what they said next. My mind was full of this thought. When I came to my senses and looked at the screen again, the 2 of them started borrowing money on various platforms. They borrowed from 6 or 7 platforms and finally managed to scrape together 2 million yuan to fill the gap. Damn it, I must find her and kill her, Jordan said viciously. I know Jordan wasn't joking. He really had the intention of killing me. However, he can't find me now. Looking at the sorry state of the 2 of them, I felt a little better. In the apocalypse, money is not very useful, but being able to cause them more trouble is also a source of pleasure. 13. February 8th, 2024. Relying on my memory, I used a voice changer to change my voice into a male voice and called the person who had chased after Jordan for debt in my previous life. I informed him of Jordan's address, without my deposit. Jordan had already owed the gambling debt for more than a month, and the debt collectors were looking for him all over the world. I fried a pot of crispy pork strips in the air fryer. While eating, I stared at the surveillance screen. Sure enough, after a while, someone went to knock on the door. Leah wasn't on guard and opened the door directly. As a result, she was so scared by the several big, burly, and fierce-looking men outside the door that she took 2 steps back. The leading man stepped forward and blocked the door, and the other men behind him stepped forward and snatched Leah's phone. Where's Jordan? The leading man looked in the direction of the bathroom where the sound of water was coming from. Without waiting for Leah to answer, he walked straight towards the bathroom and opened the door. I couldn't see at all what kind of scene was inside when I installed the surveillance cameras before. I didn't expect such an exciting scene to happen in the bathroom. After a burst of screams and groans, the man dragged Jordan, who was in disheveled clothes, out of the bathroom. There were bruises on Jordan's face, and the corner of his mouth was still red. He was probably beaten until he bled. When Leah saw Jordan like this, she burst into tears directly. But the lackey standing next to her looked at her impatiently and scratched his ear, telling her to shut up. The man put Jordan down. And Jordan immediately knelt down and begged the man to give him a few more days. Chase, please give me a few more days. My fiancée has money. I'll ask her to give the money. Just give me some time. Chase looked at him disdainfully and pointed at Leah. Your fiancée, isn't she right here? After saying that, he kicked Jordan. It's not her. My fiancée is on a business trip. She'll be back in a few days. No, I'll make her come back right away. Right away. Are you trying to fool me? It's true, Chase, this house belongs to her. Chase looked around the house. Well, it makes sense. You couldn't afford to live in this house anyway. I'll give you 3 more days. If I don't see the money by the second day of the Lunar New Year, you can figure out the consequences yourself. Chase tapped Jordan's face with the butterfly knife he was playing with in his hand. He told his lackeys to search Jordan and Leah and take away their phones, cash, and ID cards. I'm taking the ID cards. Don't even think about running away. Since we found you, there's no way we'll let you run away a second time. Chase left with his lackeys. Leah rushed to get the first aid kit to disinfect and bandage Jordan's wounds. Jordan went into the house and took out his spare phone, which he had used to contact Leah before. That's why I couldn't find anything when I checked his phone each time. Leah was still crying. Maybe the sound of her crying annoyed Jordan. Or perhaps Jordan's emotions were close to breaking down. Stop fucking crying, Jordan shouted at Leah with his veins bulging. He's really only brave when bullying those weaker than him. Where was this kind of spirit when he was kneeling down and begging for mercy just now? Leah felt even more wronged and actually reached out to snatch Jordan's phone to call the police. Are you done? Do you want to send me to jail by calling the police? Jordan swung his arm wide and slapped Leah across the face. Leah couldn't withstand the blow and was directly knocked to the ground. She looked at Jordan in disbelief. Jordan seemed to realize something and quickly squatted down to hug Leah and kept apologizing. The change in his attitude was really astonishing. Leah was easy to appease. With a few soft words, she was soon pacified, but the atmosphere between the two of them was still a bit awkward. Jordan picked up the phone again, just as he was about to make a call. He seemed to remember something and rushed into the house to search for something. After half an hour of searching, he found nothing. Damn it, that bitch Ruby. It turns out she had planned this long ago. Jordan clenched his fists, punched the bed, and smashed everything in the room that he could. He didn't stop venting until there was nothing left to break. Leah hid in another bedroom. Only then did she not dare to go out and provoke him. 14, February 9, 2024, New Year's Eve, the first day of the apocalypse. What was supposed to come still came. I was adjusting the binoculars on the second floor and looking at the village at the foot of the mountain. Some young people had come back for the new year. Every household was decorated with lanterns and festoons, and it was very lively. My phone was also filled with news about the spring festival travel rush and people returning home, until a video was forwarded on various apps and in moments, a car speeding by hit a woman in the middle of the road and sent her flying. Then the woman got up in a twisted posture, covered in blood, and bit a passerby who was going to rescue her. The passerby then began to twitch. A minute later, he also got up and rushed towards the crowd. Screams rang out one after another. Suddenly, a bloody hand knocked away the phone that was recording, and the video ended there. In the following hour, more and more similar videos appeared. The TV also broadcast the same emergency notice as before. In fact, everyone knew that things had happened too suddenly and there was no time to deal with them. Word of mouth spread quickly, and it was simply out of control. Looking at our compatriots abroad, they were also posting about the same situation online. It seemed that this was a global disaster. Fortunately, it was the spring festival, and most people were at home. Everyone also bought some New Year's goods, so they could hold on for a while. I continued to observe the situation at the foot of the mountain with the binoculars. It seemed that everyone had seen the news, and every household had their doors tightly closed. I still hadn't seen any zombies. I turned on the surveillance screen and saw Jordan pacing back and forth anxiously in the living room, but Leah was nowhere to be seen. After a while, Leah came back carrying some things. It turned out that he had made Leah go out to grab supplies. I wonder what method he used to force her out. Why did you only bring back so little? Jordan rummaged through the things Leah had brought back and scolded her. It looked like there were a few packs of instant noodles and a few bags of bread. Everyone outside has gone crazy. There are a lot of monsters. I managed to snatch these from an old lady downstairs. It was so scary. The monsters were blocking the entrance of the apartment building. I couldn't go down any further. Jordan didn't say anything more. What a scumbag and a beast. He even had the nerve to snatch supplies from an old lady. Neither of these two people can cook. Before I left, I moved away all the food. So during this period, they either ordered takeout or ate out. And there was no food left at home. The food they have now is only enough for them to live frugally for a few days. I turned off the screen, got up, and prepared my own meal. Today is New Year's Eve. According to the custom, I should make dumplings. I took out the required ingredients from the refrigerator and prepared them. I mixed the filling, kneaded the dough, rolled out the wrappers, and made the dumplings. I wrapped a coin in one of the dumplings, hoping that whoever ate it would have good luck. I remember that when I was a child, during the spring festival, I could always eat the dumpling with a coin in it. Later, when I grew up, I realized that my mother had made a mark on the dumpling and picked the marked dumpling for me. I separated the dumplings that I would eat later, and put the rest in the freezer. I could eat them whenever I wanted. Dumplings made by myself are always better than the frozen ones. I also stir-fried 2 dishes and stewed a fish. I also cooked some shrimp for Nini. The New Year's Eve dinner for me and the cat was ready. To celebrate surviving the disaster and to live well, I opened a bottle of wine. I indulged a bit while there was still no danger around. Maybe I was also feeling depressed, so I drank a lot. Looking at the family photo in my phone, countless grievances welled up. It would be so great if my parents were still alive, since I was reborn. There has always been a string in my heart that was tightened, and I didn't dare to relax for a moment. Now, taking advantage of the alcohol, I cried and vented my emotions. I will face the new life well tomorrow. 15, February 10th, 2024, the second day of the apocalypse. I drank too much and was only awakened by Nini licking me in the afternoon. I went upstairs to observe the situation at the foot of the mountain. Roadblocks had been set up at the entrance of the village at some point. The doors of every household had also been reinforced, and I didn't see anyone coming out on the road. This also provides a certain degree of security for me. I went downstairs and nestled on the sofa to browse my phone. Many apps had servers that crashed to varying degrees because there was no one to maintain them. It took a long time to refresh Weibo before I could see a few new messages, all of which were distress signals, saying that they didn't have supplies or were trapped somewhere and needed rescue. In fact, on the day I was reborn, I posted about this zombie outbreak on the internet and told everyone to stock up on supplies, but no one believed me. Yesterday, my post was brought to the top, and people below were all accusing me of not saying it earlier, and some people were asking me how I knew about it. One message caught my attention. I know who you are. If you need help, you can call me. The number is 1386960, and the last 4 digits are your house number. I added his WeChat account according to the phone number he left. He accepted. Who are you? I typed with confusion. Brandon, I don't know if you still remember, but we played together when we were kids. I don't seem to have heard this name in my memory. At Daching Mountain, when we were kids, we played house on the mountain. I was the dad and you were the mom. He probably saw that I hadn't replied for a long time and sent another message. Well, I seem to have a bit of an impression of that. It seemed to be a little boy I met when I went to my grandfather's house when I was a child. Everyone said he was a bastard without parents and didn't want to play with him. And when I first went to play in the back mountain of my grandfather's house, I saw a very delicate-looking little boy standing beside the waterfall. So I went over and pulled him to play house. Thinking of these things, I felt so ashamed that I wanted to cover my face. I was so fond of good looks when I was a child. Why did I end up with someone like Jordan when I grew up? You don't have to be afraid. I have no ill intentions. I don't know if you'll believe me when I say this, but I have some memories about this zombie outbreak. So when I saw your post online, I checked your information and found that I seemed to know you. Checked my information, didn't I post anonymously, when I heard him say that he had some memories? Could it be that he was reborn like me? This kind of anonymity is useless to some professionals, but it should be okay. Who would go out of their way to check someone's information for no reason? I suddenly thought that someone might check the IP address. Fortunately, I posted the message at home in the city center at that time. If they check the address, they should go there. Since you posted that message, you should have stocked up enough supplies. Pay attention to protecting yourself. In a situation like this, people are often scarier than zombies. I don't know if it's because I want to communicate with someone while living alone in the apocalypse or because I trust him for some inexplicable reason, but we chatted casually. We didn't mention our own situations. We just knew that we were both still relatively safe for now. Maybe we just wanted someone to talk to. 16, February 11th, 2024, the third day of the apocalypse. When I woke up in the morning, I used a secondary account to send a message in the community group. Dear neighbors, do you need any supplies? As far as I can tell, I can't go back home either. I still have a lot of food and some daily necessities at home. If you need them, you can go and get them. Room 801, Building 6. The password is 906908. Immediately, some neighbors in the same building wanted to form a team to go to my house to look for supplies. I stopped looking at the phone messages and made a simple breakfast for myself. I cooked red date oatmeal porridge, fried 2 poached eggs, and ate them with the crispy cucumber pickles that I had pickled overnight yesterday. Halfway through eating, I heard some movement from the surveillance on the computer. I picked up my bowl and ran to the computer. Several neighbors were standing at the door with all kinds of self-defense weapons. Some of them looked very familiar. And there was also the security guard guy downstairs. The few of them looked at Jordan and Leah. Are you also here to look for supplies? The security guard guy spoke first and asked, look for what supplies? This is my house. How did you get in? Please leave. Seeing that these people in front of him were holding weapons like sticks and kitchen knives, Jordan didn't dare to act rashly. Your house. Didn't the owner of this house go out? Young man, this isn't very honest of you. The owner of the house said she wanted to share the supplies, and you want to keep them all for yourself. An older uncle pointed at Jordan's nose and said, the owner, damn it, it's that bitch Ruby's doing again. This is my house. You guys leave right away. I don't have any supplies here either. I don't need the food. Can you give me that cold medicine on the table? My child has a high fever, and there's no medicine now. What should I do? One of them walked towards the table and wanted to take the medicine on the table. In a situation like this, even a little bit of supplies is extremely precious. A person like Jordan definitely wouldn't give it away. Jordan stopped that person and pushed him back. When the others saw that Jordan had started a fight, they all rushed forward and beat Jordan up. We're all here looking for supplies. Why do you want to keep them all for yourself? Jordan's injuries from being beaten by the debt collectors a few days ago hadn't fully healed, and now he was beaten up pretty badly again. Leah wanted to stop them from hitting Jordan, but she didn't dare to step forward. Instead, she turned around and went to the kitchen to tightly protect the food. The security guard guy walked towards Leah, snatched the few packs of instant noodles that she was protecting from under her, grabbed Leah, and asked, where did you hide all the food? The owner of the house said there was a lot of food. Why are there only these few packs of instant noodles left? Leah was in so much pain that she couldn't speak. She could only keep shaking her head. The security guard guy threw her aside and started searching. He took away all the food he could find. The others did the same. They took away all the food and usable items they could find. 17, February 12, 2024. The fourth day of the apocalypse. They had no more food left. Jordan was forcing Leah to go out and look for supplies. When Leah refused, the two of them started fighting. It's a bit of a stretch to call it a fight. It was more like Jordan unilaterally abusing and hitting Leah. If you don't go out and look for supplies, then you can become the supplies yourself, Jordan said viciously as he choked Leah's neck. Leah struggled and her hand grabbed the ashtray next to her. She smashed it hard on Jordan's head. Jordan was dazed from the blow. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Leah kept smashing his head with the ashtray until he lost consciousness and fell down. Leah slumped down against the wall and breathed heavily. Seeing that Leah had taken down Jordan, she was really a tough person. I had always wanted to ask her a question. I turned on the voice function of the surveillance. Leah, I have a question for you. If you answer me, I'll send you supplies. Ruby, you said you have supplies. Where are you? I was wrong before. I was just muddle-headed for a moment. Save me. I'll tell you whatever you want to know as long as you save me. Why did you treat me like this? I was so good to you. Why did you betray me and hurt me behind my back? When Leah heard my accusation, she realized that I wasn't going to save her. She decided to just give up and speak her mind. Good to me? Do you mean when you were patronizing me? Why? Why do you get to be like a young lady, while I can only be your little follower? Just because your parents are rich and mine don't care about me, I want to take everything away from you. All of this should be mine. I always regarded you as my best friend. Why would you think like this? It turns out that jealousy can really corrupt any kind of relationship. Heh, best friend. How ironic. Before Leah could finish her words, Jordan, who had woken up, picked up a small knife and stabbed it into her neck from behind. Blood spurted out. Leah was still saying something. By reading her lips, it seemed she was saying, he killed your uncle and aunt. Jordan kept stabbing in and out. After about 10 times, Leah completely went limp and fell down. The zombies outside the door must have smelled the blood. I heard the thumping sound of them hitting the door. I was so shocked by what had just happened that I didn't dare to breathe. This was the first time I had faced a murder scene directly, which put a great psychological burden on me. Thinking about what Leah had said just now, it turned out that the thing they were talking about was indeed this. He really was the one who ran over my parents, coupled with the fact that in my previous life, He killed me, deceived me out of my money, and had an affair with the person I thought was my best friend behind my back. One thing after another flashed through my mind, and the accumulated grievances and anger instantly turned into a deeper hatred. I hated this scumbag for not being punished by heaven, hated him for not being eaten by the zombies, and hated myself for not being able to deal with him with my own hands. After Jordan dealt with Leah, he started searching the house. I knew he was looking for the surveillance cameras. I watched as he found the surveillance cameras one by one and turned off the screens. I clicked on the remote unlocking function of the password lock, but found it was useless. There was only the last surveillance camera in the living room left. Jordan stood in front of it, raised his hand, and held the battery from the password lock between his fingers. Then he turned around and left without turning off this surveillance camera. After a while, he brought a small pot over. There was a pot of meat soup in it, with minced meat floating on the surface. He tasted it unhurriedly, as if it were some delicious delicacy. There shouldn't be any meat left at home. When I thought about what it might be, I quickly ran to the bathroom and vomited into the toilet. When I recovered, he had already finished eating. He took out his phone and searched for something. Then he held the phone close to the surveillance camera and played a video. The video recorded how he crashed into my parents' car, how he watched my parents lose their breath, and how he set the car on fire to create the feint of spontaneous combustion. I felt cold all over and couldn't stop crying. Jordan, you will die a miserable death. Jordan on the other side of the surveillance camera raised a strange smile at the corner of his mouth. Wait for me. Then the screen went black. I closed the laptop. Those two simple words made the hair on my body stand on end. I slumped in front of the computer. It took me 5 minutes to recover. I suddenly stood up and started checking the safety facilities of the entire old house. After taking stock of the supplies again, I felt a little better. But thinking that if he came, I could deal with him with my own hands, I wasn't as scared anymore. It usually takes 3 hours to drive from his location to the old house, and in this situation, there is a 99% chance that he won't be able to get here. Just the zombies wandering outside the door are not easy to deal with. Although I said that, I was still a bit restless. February 13th, 2024. The 5th day of the apocalypse. Life has to go on. The water and electricity supplies have been paralyzed. Fortunately, I had made sufficient preparations before, so my life is still going on as normal. I was browsing my phone. In the past 2 days, the network signal has been intermittent, and I could hardly refresh any new messages. My chat with Brandon also stopped at noon yesterday. I don't know if it's because of the poor network or if he had an accident. Anyway, I have to keep living my own life. I hugged the cat and kissed it for a while, which gave me some sense of happiness. I've been watching teaching videos on growing crops these past 2 days, and it's time to start practicing. The shed in the backyard has a suitable temperature and is just right. I did everything according to what was taught in the video, step by step. As for what it will grow into, I'll just leave it to fate. I don't know why, but my right eyelid has been twitching since this morning. This is not a good sign. Suddenly, I heard the sound of a car in the distance. My heart tightened, and I quickly went upstairs to look through the binoculars. A car had already crashed through the roadblock at the entrance of the village and was driving up the mountain. When I looked at the person in the driver's seat, I was stunned. It was Jordan. He really came. I picked up the shotgun that I had always kept by my side and loaded the bullets. After getting ready, I heard the car stop at my door. Wife, did you do all this to give me a surprise? Open the door and let your husband in. I saw from the surveillance camera at the door that Jordan was covered in blood and was knocking on the door. Why did you kill my parents? Why did you treat me like this? You're a murderer. Wife, you're not being good. Don't ask questions that you shouldn't. Let your husband in quickly. Your husband forgives you for being disobedient. Suddenly, a sharp scream came from the foot of the mountain. I quickly looked through the binoculars and saw that the zombies had entered the village and rushed into the villagers' yards. You actually led the zombies here. I knew something felt off. The sound of his car was too loud. This is a gift for you, wife. Don't you like it? The smile on Jordan's pale face was extremely eerie. I really couldn't stand it anymore. I felt physically uncomfortable, seeing that I didn't say anything more. Jordan climbed onto the car and started climbing up the courtyard wall from the roof. I stood at the window on the 2nd floor and watched him slowly climb up through the surveillance camera until he touched the electric fence. I thought the electric fence could stop him. At first, one of his hands retracted due to the electric shock, but then he just forced himself to climb up. Regardless of the fact that his hand was already charred black from the electricity, wife, Wait for me. I'll be there soon. It made my scalp tingle. Was this still a human being? To be honest, I was a bit panicked. In my panic, I raised the gun and fired at him, but I missed. One of his feet was almost over the wall. Just as I was about to fire again, an arrow shot into his head from the side, and he fell down uncontrollably. I raised the gun again and fired several more shots at his fallen body. Only when I saw that he was completely out of breath did I heave a sigh of relief. I looked in the direction from which the arrow had come, and a man turned around and was about to leave. Many zombies in the distance had heard the gunshots just now and were running up the mountain. I called out to him and asked him to come in and take shelter first. The zombies were already very close. Ruby, do you know what it means to let me in? The man's voice was very pleasant. What could I mean, considering that he had saved my life? I couldn't just watch him go to his death. I quickly went downstairs and turned off the electric fence, then threw down a rope for him to climb up. While he was pulling himself up along the rope, the zombies could already reach his feet. He stepped on the head of a zombie, used it as leverage to jump up to a place where the zombies couldn't reach, and then climbed in along the rope. Now I was finally relieved. As long as he wasn't as crazy as Jordan, he shouldn't pose any threat. My name is Brandon, the man introduced himself. So it's you. Brandon looked like a doll when he was a child. Now that he has grown up, he has a very masculine charm, giving the impression of a sunny and handsome sports student. I've been living at the foot of the mountain. I didn't dare to tell you because I was afraid you'd think I had ulterior motives. I just saw a car heading straight up the mountain and was worried that you were in danger. So I came, Brandon explained without daring to look at me. Thank you. I could feel his kindness, which was worlds apart from the false kindness that a scumbag like Jordan put on. I went up to the second floor to check the situation outside. Jordan's body was being torn apart by the zombies he had attracted. Was this what they call reaping what you sow? I didn't feel as satisfied as I had imagined, and the situation at the foot of the mountain worried me even more. The old man who had stopped my car last time was being grabbed by the arm by the zombies that had rushed in. He turned around and ran towards the house, but the door was shut tightly by the people inside. Just like that, the old man was eaten by the zombies outside. Guilt and self-blame filled my heart. If it weren't for me, those villagers wouldn't have gone through this. Brandon seemed to sense my emotional change. Actually, you don't have to blame yourself. The zombies would have come sooner or later. Even if someone is to blame, it should be that man just now. It has nothing to do with you, so don't feel guilty. His gentle voice rang in my ears. Before I knew it, he had already stood beside me. I looked at Brandon. Maybe my gaze was too intense. As the tips of his ears turned red, his words did comfort me a little. I pulled myself together and said, "It seems that we won't be able to get out for a while." Looking at the situation outside. "You can stay here." All the other rooms were used to store supplies, so he could only sleep on the sofa. When Nini saw a stranger coming, it came over and rubbed against his leg. Brandon picked up Nini and stroked its fur. Nini rubbed its little head against his face comfortably. There's really no comparison, no harm. Jordan used to just kick Nini away. There are enough supplies in the house for several people to live for many years, and one more mouth to feed won't make a difference. When I bought clothes, I prepared various sizes for myself, in case my body shape changed in the apocalypse, but there's really nothing I can do about the shoes. In the evening, to thank him, or maybe because I had finally avenged my parents and myself, I cooked a big table of dishes and opened several bottles of wine. He didn't drink, he just watched me drink by myself. I don't know why, but I have an inexplicable sense of trust in him. 19, February 14th, 2024, the 5th day of the apocalypse. I don't know how I got back to my room. All I know is that I had a nightmare and kept dreaming of the scene of being torn apart by zombies in my previous life, until the face of the zombie that bit me for the last time turned into Jordan's face, with an eerie smile on his pale and blue face. I was so scared that I sat up abruptly in bed. After having the nightmare for so long, the bedsheet was already soaked with sweat. Why is this guy still torturing me even after he's dead? I got up and prepared to go upstairs to get a new bedsheet. As soon as I went out, I was startled by Brandon standing at the door. "What are you doing? You scared me. I heard you scream and came over." I didn't dare to go in, so I just waited here. There was a look of worry on Brandon's face. It's okay. I just had a nightmare. By the way, I've made breakfast. Come and eat. Later, I'll go and plant the crops. I checked this morning, and the zombies are still wandering outside the door. But they pose no threat, so don't worry." He walked into the kitchen and brought out 2 bowls of freshly cooked chicken soup noodles. I have to say, the noodles he made are quite delicious. After eating, he went to the backyard to plant the crops. Yesterday, after he took a look around, he said that the way I planted the vegetables was wrong. I'm not about it. I've never planted crops before anyway. The situation at the foot of the mountain has also stabilized a lot. There are occasionally a few zombies wandering on the village road. Many villagers still haven't left their houses and have managed to avoid the zombies. It's just that we have to be careful about everything in the future and not make too much noise. There are many zombies wandering outside my yard, but it doesn't matter. The yard is sturdy, so I don't have to worry about the zombies getting in. Looking at it from another perspective, these zombies can also indirectly protect me and block some people who want to come up the mountain. After checking the facilities again and finding that there were no problems, I went back upstairs and looked at the person who was working hard in the backyard. So far, Brandon is really great. With him around, I basically don't have to do anything. May 23rd, 2024. A few months have passed. Some of the vegetables that Brandon planted have already matured as they grew quickly. And the quail chickens in the chicken coop are laying eggs every day. We use a light to check. The fertilized eggs are continued to be incubated, and the infertile eggs are eaten. Our little life is really quite carefree. Living with Brandon is very harmonious. He basically takes care of all the work. He even plays with the cat. All I do every day is exercise, read books, and play games. He is also very skillful with his hands. He used my clothes to make shoes for himself. I was stunned when I saw it for the first time. I asked him why he knew how to do so many things. He said that when he was a child, no one took care of him, so he had to do everything by himself. I felt a bit sorry for him, but he said it was nothing, it was all in the past, and he was very happy now, having such a good-looking guy around me every day. Sometimes I really want to pounce on him, but I've always been afraid of what would happen if I got pregnant at this time. Sometimes, even when the atmosphere is right, I don't dare to take the next step. Until today, when I was taking stock of the supplies, I saw the 2 boxes of condoms that I brought back from the pharmacy. I was stunned. How could I have forgotten about these? I've been abstaining from sex for so long because of this. I went to the field and pulled out some spinach, pak choy, and coriander. Then I went to the ice storage and took some meat rolls, shrimp paste, fish balls, and other hot pot ingredients. Tonight, I must get Brandon drunk. If I can't get him drunk, at least the atmosphere has to be right. I'll also pick a movie with some intimate content and pull him to watch it with me after dinner. I don't believe I can't win him over. Brandon, let's have hot pot for dinner tonight. I've prepared the dishes. I called back Brandon, who was still exercising. Let me do it. You go and take a rest. Brandon came downstairs and took the dishes that I was washing from my hands. I was chased to the living room, which was just right for me to pick a movie to watch for a while. After a while, Brandon was ready and called me to have dinner. The smell of the beef tallow spicy hot pot filled the air, and he even thoughtfully prepared the dipping sauce for me. I took out the prepared baijiu and poured 2 glasses, pushing one in front of him. I don't know how to drink. Brandon looked at the glass of wine and said, "Just drink a little to relax. It's not good for your body to be always tense." Despite my repeated attempts to persuade him to drink, he still didn't drink. He's really a tough nut to crack. It's making me so angry. I was so angry that I downed the glass of baijiu in one gulp. The after effects kicked in, and my head felt dizzy, ignoring the fact that I hadn't finished dinner yet. I pulled Brandon and wanted to watch the movie. Brandon couldn't resist me and obediently sat beside me to watch the movie with me, but the more he watched, the redder his face became. Looking at the blush on his face, I giggled. "You're so good looking." I smiled stupidly and pinched his face. "Ruby, stop messing around. You've had too much to drink." Although Brandon said that, he didn't pull my hand away. I saw an opportunity and turned around to sit on his lap, looking at him face to face. His face turned even redder, and he didn't dare to look me in the eye. I turned his face straight. "Look at me. Am I good looking?" "Good." Before he could finish, I held his face and directly leaned in to kiss him. Just as I was about to take things further, he pushed me away. He set me upright and said to me seriously, "I can't put you at any risk now. This kind of situation isn't suitable for this. What if you get pregnant? You were worried about this, so that's why you refused before too." Yeah, hearing this, I was quite happy. I had thought before that he wasn't interested in me and that's why he refused me. I pulled him to the place where the supplies were stored and showed him those 2 boxes of things. I saw that expression on his face for the first time. It's hard to describe. Before I could react, he had already picked me up in his arms and walked towards the house. He placed me on the bed, leaned over, and pressed his face close to mine. Ruby, have you had too much to drink? I'm perfectly sober, although I had prepared myself mentally. It was inevitable that I was a bit scared on the first time. Thankfully, he gently kissed my body. Gradually, I got used to this kind of contact, and then he made further moves. We stayed up all night. March 2nd, 2027. It's been 3 years and 23 days since the apocalypse began. So much time has passed, and there's been no news from the outside world. The weather has started to become extreme. The blizzard that lasted for a whole month has finally ended. Since having a more intimate relationship with Brandon, our life has become more fulfilling. The vegetables in the field are growing very well under Brandon's care, and the number of quail chickens is more than double what it used to be. After taking stock of the supplies, not only have they not decreased, but there are even more. An air raid siren that resounded through the sky and earth suddenly went off, startling both of us. We quickly ran to the second floor to observe the situation. What we saw was even more terrifying. All the zombies were walking in one direction. Brandon put down the binoculars. They're probably trying to eliminate the zombies in a concentrated way. Epilogue, March 10th, 2027. The air raid siren sounded for a full 9 days. After 9 days, there were several loud booms, and several mushroom clouds rose into the sky in the distance. March 20th, 2027. There have been the sounds of gunfire and cannons coming from the distance in recent days. A helicopter flew over the old house, and the broadcast on the helicopter played on a loop. Dear survivors, the government hasn't given up. Currently, the zombies have been basically eliminated, and the development of the vaccine is in its final stage. Please, survivors in need, tie a noticeable red cloth in a conspicuous place, and we will distribute supplies once all the zombies are eliminated. Let's unite and rebuild our homeland. Brandon and I discussed it and decided not to tie the red cloth. Our current situation doesn't require any supplies, so we'll leave them for those in need. May 20th, 2027, the zombies have all been eliminated, and the vaccine has been successfully developed. After getting vaccinated, you can enter the newly built survivor base in the east of the city. Please wait in place to get vaccinated, or go to the base to get vaccinated on your own. When going on your own, please be careful of any remaining zombies and pay attention to your safety. The helicopter flew over again. A few days later, several people wearing protective suits came to the front of the yard and knocked on the door. Hello, survivors. We were sent by the government to vaccinate the survivors outside. Please cooperate with us. We connected the electricity to the gate and opened it for the first time in several years, after Brandon and I got vaccinated. The staff member continued, you can go to the base after getting vaccinated. Brandon and I looked at each other and smiled. We saw the answer in each other's eyes. We won't go for now. It's quite nice to live here. If there's a need, we'll do our best to cooperate. Was it really a dream? But this real feeling and the memory of more than a month can't be explained. Before leaving, the staff member called Brandon over, and the two of them whispered something. When Brandon came back, I kept asking him what they had said, but he wouldn't say a word. I pestered him to tell me, but he just wouldn't. Finally, he had no choice but to tell me in my ear. My face immediately turned burning hot and red. Let's get married. His voice was soft, but it was solemn and sincere. I looked up at him, and he looked at me nervously. I stepped forward and hugged his slightly stiff body, which was tense with nervousness. I stood on tiptoe and also whispered in his ear, okay,